I'm sure it's Billy a beer on macrobody, and he's playing ugly to me. And I wonder if he's ever had a day of fun in his whole life. We are drinking beer at noon on Tuesday. The panda face the giant car wash. The good people of the water washing the cars on the large breaks. Ocean is scrubbing as best they can in skirts and suites. And they down the shiny distance bricks. Back to the phone company, the record stores too. But they ain't nothing like Bill me. Cause all I wanna do is have some fun. I got a feeling I'm not the only one. All I wanna do is have some fun. I got a feeling I'm not the only one. All I wanna do is have some fun. Until the sun comes up over Santa Monica Boulevard. I like a good bit brunch early in the morning. Bill likes to feel the lights from this bottle of wine. He shred them on the bar, then he lights up every mile. Gina always has fun letting it on burn down to his thick fingers before blowing the curls of the mouth. He's watching the bottles of wine and the spin on the floor. And a happy couple enters the bar. Then just close to one another. The bartender claps for his one. That's all I wanna do is have some fun. I got a feeling I'm not the only one. All I wanna do is have some fun. I got a feeling I'm not the only one. All I wanna do is have some fun. I hear the sun goes out over Santa Monica Boulevard. Oh, until the sun comes up over Santa Monica Boulevard. Santa Monica Boulevard. All I wanna do is have some fun. Oh, it's how
To noon, people! Big applause for our band! Come on, guys, big applause! Thank you very much, guys. Second year in a row. So, welcome everyone. My name is Alex, and I'm going to be your MC for the rest of this afternoon. And I want to introduce someone that I think is very special, is someone that has an incredible track record and has this, I would say, living history of our technology industry. It's someone that has co-founded 6 companies with mates from MIT. 5 of them have gone very well, several IPOs. One of them crashed, as it normally happens. One of them, probably you guys know about it. If I say 3Com, everyone has heard about 3Com? Raise your hand. You've heard about 3Com? There we go. Those are the nerds.
They're too young.
Those are the nerds. He's been coming to Spain for many, many years, and he's been working for startups for the last 20 years, and basically helping all these companies grow and go global, which is one of his handiwork. And apart from that, he explicitly told me, he said, I'm not retiring, my wife is not retiring, we're going to keep helping startups, and specifically, we're going to keep helping startups in the Spanish ecosystem. So please thank me and thank him. Big applause for the chairman and CEO of the Entrepreneurship Ventures, Ken Morse.
Thank you. Now, tell the guys in the back that entrepreneurship is not a spectator sport. Okay, so come on forward. Okay, we're not going to start. All the guys in the back come up. There's a lot of empty seats
You know
here.
what we're going to do? The thing
Because
is,
they reserve for big companies, and big companies have no clue.
that's right. So I want to see everyone breaking the rules.
Come on.
Sitting on the front rows. Screw the reserve seats.
Yeah.
Ken, the floor is yours. Enjoy, guys. Have fun.
Which part of the floor? Okay, so come on, Vale, come on. So he said that I started 6 companies. True. He said that 5 of them were successful, and 1 was a complete disaster. Okay? So what's your definition? Manuel, what's your definition of a disaster? Okay? How about if I told you, no, come on. We went from 88 employees to 4 in one afternoon. Does that sound like a disaster?
It sounds like a disaster.
It sounds like a disaster, okay. So this particular startup, I just want to say, was in Kendall Square, next to MIT, and we had the most MIT professors involved with the company of any of my companies. We had the most MIT alumni as officers in the company, and the most MIT students working as slaves in the software development, okay? So it should be okay, but it was a disaster. Now we paid the kids, everybody under 30 got 2 weeks' salary, and those of us who were over 30, you over 30? Just last year, okay, yeah. So those of us who were over 30 got what was left. I got the furniture. Now what is a natural part of the entrepreneurial process? A natural part is failure, right? So it's easy to sit here and say it, but there's going to be failures, right? Got a lot of entrepreneurs, you got a lot of startups, you're going to have a lot of failures. So there is a vibrant, dynamic market in used furniture. Okay? So I didn't have any problem selling the furniture to another startup company. We bought it from a bankrupt startup company. So that's the benefit. That's all you need to know about the value of being in an ecosystem, right? There's other failures and cheap used furniture. Okay. Now, I'm only going to use half the slides. But the purpose of this discussion is to talk about what does it take to build not just a little bitty startup that grows to 6 or 8 people and then stalls out and lives on grants, but one that achieves sustainable global growth, okay? So that's what this is supposed to be about. So that's my theme. So and I think that you, as an entrepreneur, you have to have an outstanding team. Now, one of the best venture capitalists in Spain, there are many of them here, I'm looking around actually, but one of them, Inveretti, he will tell you he invests in teams, not in technology. He's very tech savvy, but he invests in teams. Is that unusual or is that normal? So somewhere out there's a YouTube of me saying that I teach people how to write business plans and I never read them. Okay? Why read it? Because it's going to change. It's an important exercise for the founders to go through it to see if the numbers fit. But basically, you don't read it. You look at a company if the men and women who are running it are rock star, workaholic maniacs, right? And they need to know something about selling, too. Okay, so ambition is key. But I think the money that you get to support your growth should work as hard for you as you work for your investors. So truly value-added investors are important. In the US, where all the money is green, they say that it's blue money. I don't know. I mean, I did this blue money slide in Germany, and I got in big trouble because it's like the 100 euro note. Which one is blue? I don't know. I never have big enough. I don't have any big ones. So, but I do think that this is a great time to be starting a company because people do know much more about failure in Spain than before. The crisis helps a lot, you know? There's a lot of really nice people that went splat on the windshield of life, okay? And once you've gone splat, it's easier to help somebody else who's in trouble. Don't you think, Laura? Sorry? Yes? Good. Good. So, Ignacio, was I correct? You invest in teams more than technology?
Absolutely. Teams
Okay.
number one.
That's a microphone? Yeah. Looks like a box of chocolates. Okay, so, but I do think that what also has happened, the whole game has gotten tougher, and a line of bull and a PowerPoint presentation is not enough to get funding. Which leads me to the first algorithm, Adriana. DAD is much greater than MBBB. Ignacio? What's that mean? Down and dirty beats McKinsey, Booz, Bain, and Boston. Okay, good. All right, so you got to really have grit under your fingers if you're going to be an entrepreneur today. So you got to have an A team, Jose, right? You have ABBV, okay? That's an A team. You charge more for their product than anybody else in the room. Way to go. Keep it up, man. Don't lower those prices just because the US Senate doesn't like it, okay? And if you have an A team, one of the key things you have to have in the team is selling skills. We interviewed hundreds, literally hundreds, of CEOs across Europe. Most of them are engineers. And they say, you know what? Sales is harder than technology. And that's why John Adams is here. Stand up, John, right? He is a workaholic sales animal, okay? Now, some of you guys may have great technology, but if you can't sell it, you're going down, okay? You better have some salespeople. But I would say that the CEO actually is the top sales guy in the company. Okay, so what's the sales process? You have to stalk the customers because you're never going to be able to meet them in their office. They don't want to see some young company, right? You never get past the secretary. You're going to have to find the guys. And by the way, this is a high target-rich environment. There's a lot of potential customers here. You should be working that hamburger stand, okay? Estela, Galicia Estela, right? They have the burgers, and there's got the entrepreneurs there too, and the big companies, right? So you stalk them and you pitch to them. How long is the pitch? Senora, how long do you have to pitch a big guy?
Some minutes.
Marcus, come on, you know the answer.
How long
do you meet Senora? Oh, there's Senora Grande. She's the CEO of a company that you want to sell to. Yeah. You go across the room. It's a cocktail party, but they're having cava, foie, right? Mm-hmm. How much time do you have with Senora Grande before somebody else is going to come and interrupt you?
Until he buys.
Huh?
Until he buys.
Yeah?
Whatever it takes.
Yeah. You're good, but you're not that good, Marcos. You can't sell your product in 1 minute. But you have to be short and to the point. So this is completely against the Spanish culture. So that's one of the... You have to pitch, and the purpose of the pitch is to get the meeting. And the purpose of the meeting, which might be 15 minutes, is not to sell, but to get them to commit, to evaluate whether your solution will work for them. And that evaluation is a kind of a commitment, okay? And the purpose of the evaluation. John Adams, what's the purpose of the evaluation? Yep, a long-term contract which probably will have a pilot phase and a rollout phase. Exactly. But all the time you're doing this, scratching around for business, you have your eye on the prize, which is total global domination of your chosen market niche. Right? Right? Anything less than that is, I don't know, it's like kissing your sister. It's easy to do, but not very interesting, right? You want to have a total approach. So I think I mentioned everything I want to say about business plans. The only thing I read is the first page. If you don't name your first 10 customers on the first page of your business plan, it is a superb application of the delete button. Why spend storage on a business plan that isn't customer-centric? Page 1. And Carlos, it says you're a media, right? Okay? You write this down. You tell your readers, okay, that it can't just be, we're going to sell to these guys. It's got to be the name of the person, his or her email address and mobile number, and why they're going to buy, and they told you, if you can build it, we will buy it. That's market research. Anything else doesn't work, at least not for me, okay? And I do think that you need to plan to build your company without any outside money. I can't tell you the number of entrepreneurs who say, oh, we just need to raise the money. Well, forget getting the money till you have customers. And forget getting the customers until you know how to sell, I would say. Yes? Yeah. Thank you, Marcos. Good. I gotta go through here fast because I can't tell you what Obama's doing about this, okay? And so, but I do think that entrepreneurs are a special kind of species. But the number one thing in an entrepreneur is integrity, because they do not have time to do contracts. You have to know that your handshake is all you need. Without it, nothing else matters. And I do think that leadership, now they say that it's actually ramen leadership, right? How do you lead the company when nobody is eating anything except noodles? And I think that's probably true. You have to have a quick clock speed and a bias towards action. So if you're one of these people in a large company who really enjoys going to meetings, I'm not sure that entrepreneurship is for you, okay? But the guy in the meeting who after 45 minutes gets up and says, I'm gonna go call a customer, now that guy is interesting. Right, Manuel? You don't ever have meetings more than 45 minutes in the innovation group, do you? And they're stand-up meetings at that, right? Yeah, no, don't sit down, don't get comfortable. Who says, where is it written in your job description that you're supposed to be comfortable? I don't think so, it's not there. Okay, and you have to be able to recruit top talent. Now some people say, oh, entrepreneurs, I can just tell when I see them. But I would say that there's an MIT equation. Anybody study chemistry here? The pH of an entrepreneur's stomach is 2 standard deviations from the mean. Okay, that's what it says there. So they're tough. Now, I do think, let's talk about Spain. I'm supposed to talk about Spain. And on the other hand, I have to be able to, go to the airport and be able to get out, right? So I can't say everything that's on my mind. But I can say to you that to build an entrepreneurial ecosystem in Spain, we need the help of the large companies. It isn't going to happen unless Spanish entrepreneurs can sell to large Spanish companies. It's just not going to happen. So the role of large companies is important, and there are some large companies here both as sponsors and also as engaged partners. And I believe that the climate for large companies doing business with entrepreneurs has improved steadily every year for the last 10 years. Would you say, Manuel? And maybe it has a long way to go, but it's much better than it used to be. Now, when a small company with a balance sheet, which is, asymptotic to negative infinity, and no cash flow and all that, they don't get thrown out right away. And you were telling me at lunch also that there's a new guideline that says that governments should at least consider doing business with companies that don't have a 3-year trading history. And I think you do have to have access to global networks and global markets. You have a clock. I got to make sure I don't run over time. Okay? What time is it? 45? 3:45. Yeah, good. Okay, well, I'm not dead yet. Okay. So I want to go to some examples of Spanish companies that are making it, okay? And what would be the common themes, would you say? Mehdi, what would be some common themes? No, of the entrepreneurs. What are they like? What are some, are they workaholic maniacs? If they're not workaholic, there's no way, okay? And they say, I don't mind because I'm independent now, right? I work 24 hours a day, but I get to choose which 24, okay? And I think the second thing is that governments and universities have a role to play in supporting it. But let's take a look at the biggest startup hubs this year. According to some reasonable source, both Madrid and Barcelona. Spain is the only country that has 2 impressive startup hubs. That's not bad. I don't know what this would have been 10 years ago, but I don't think we would have been in the money. So you've got both Barcelona and Madrid. And then the thing that the venture capital, you'll be surprised to know that venture capitalists are not charitable, granola, tree hugger, save the whale type people, okay? You'd be surprised. They actually want to make money. They want a big IRR. They want to show off to their limited partners so that they can get them again. And so look at the return that Barcelona is generating compared to London. What do you think of that? Manuel? You didn't know that. You came all the way from downtown Madrid to find that out? Okay, thank you for making the trip. Okay? What does this tell you? They're doing something right over there. Okay? And Madrid's on the list too. Not, ahead of Moscow. That's good. So I want to talk about 6 different companies that have built global businesses, one of them with Ignacio's help. But let's talk about Increnta. They were already in business when the general new concept of using social media to drive potential customers to your site, so-called inbound marketing, when that revolution was started. And that revolution was started by a number of forces, and it was captured and capitalized upon by HubSpot in Boston, an MIT spin-off company. So Increnta is the largest distributor for HubSpot in Europe, and the largest distributor for HubSpot in Latin America. Because they believe the growth markets are in LATAM. Last I heard, there's not a lot of growth in Spain. So they're going after LATAM pretty well. And Jose Vicente Ponce is here. He's on their board of advisors. Forest Chemical is another. Forest Chemical Group, I'm sorry. I think it's probably important that Increnta is based in Valencia. And their offices, they have an office in Madrid, Bogota, Chile, Mexico City, and Bilbao. Okay, so that's where the growing markets are. Forest Chemical, headquartered in Alicante, founded in Alicante, selling to the packaging industry, growing like a weed, $3.5 million revenue, gross margins, and they've just added an important round of funding, replacing La Caixa and bringing in family offices. Many of the family offices are also customers. Remember I said you want the money to work for you? Here's money where they're also customers. Very good. Health Consult. Now, Carles, are you here? He was on a plane last night from Boston to Madrid, but anything can happen. But anyway, if Carlos, you'll see him around. Sooner or later, he'll get here. So what he's done is he started the company in Barcelona. He's working with hospitals in Barcelona. He's outsourced some of his medical development to Valencia, and his business headquarters is in Kendall Square, next to all of the hospitals in leading hospitals in the U.S. Same with Ellie de los Pinos. She was at Lilly, found a new way of treating targeted therapies for cancer, wanted to start her own company. She's Catalan. She felt that the best place to do it was to move from Spain and be in Kendall Square next to all of the other cancer therapy companies, both customers and competitors, because you want to be in a cluster that's industry specific cluster of customers and competitors. So Ellie just completed another massive round of funding. She's on the 1-yard line with the FDA approvals, and Henry Termier, founder of Genzyme, is on her board and has $5 million of his own money in the company. I think he helps her quite a bit, both spiritually and also picking up the phone and getting access. Okay, Damia founded the company in Valencia. Again, went to Kendall, doing some important work in Barcelona as well. Okay, Indices, which is the last example, because Mercedes will have a heart attack if I don't finish in 45 seconds, was founded in Sevilla. They originally had money from Invercaria, which is the government funding arm for Andalusia, under the leadership of her advisors. We invited Ignacio to lunch and said, hey, Ignacio, how would you like to replace Invercaria and provide your leadership and wisdom to this ambitious tech entrepreneur? He said yes. All VCs don't decide very quickly because they always want to see another card played. But anyway, you weren't so bad. You were great, actually, fantastic. And then he and I were on the board for a while. We got Intel Capital into the company and ultimately sold the company to Intel. It's an operating division of Intel, and Pilar commutes between Santa Clara and Sevilla. Were more jobs created in Spain because of it? Absolutely. And it was also Intel's first investment in Spain. 140 countries they had invested in before they invested in Spain, but we got them over that. Okay, good. So what's the common theme? They're workaholics, they love jet fuel, they know why God made it, and they use it, okay? They're constantly customer-focused. The development teams are all in Spain. The business headquarters is where the customers are, which isn't usually in Spain. Sometimes it is, but not always. And they want to build a company that achieves global domination of their chosen market niche. And each one of them is doing it. And if you applaud now, you're not applauding for me, you're applauding for them. I admire them so much. They really know how to do it. And they don't ever take no for an answer. No is an invitation to negotiate, right, Manuel? And they're great kids, all of them. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Big applause for Ken the Legend Morse. And our next speaker, thank you very much, Ken. Our next speaker is going to talk about, I think, interesting topic for a lot of people that have been talking a lot about sharing economy and the new economies and new things that are happening. We're going to talk about the birth of the abundance economy. Someone that's an honorary member of the Venezuelan Engineering College. He's within the Marquis edition of the Who is Who in the world, and for the past few years, he's been consulting and advising most of the big companies in the energy space like BP, ExxonMobil, Pemex, Petrobras, Repsol, Shell, or Total. Please welcome the energy advisor for the prestigious Singularity University, Jose Luis Cordeiro.
Hello, hello. I'm here to talk about the future. We are living in the most incredible times in human history. I work with different institutions to review what has happened in the past and what might happen in the future. One of those groups is the Millennium Project that began as the futuristic part of the United Nations. Now, we are an independent NGO that monitors all the trends and all the challenges of humanity into the future, and we publish the state of the future every year to see how the world will be like in 20 years, 50 years, 100 years. And we monitor the conditions of humanity, and they have been improving constantly. Basically, if we look at the last few centuries, the first country in the history of humanity that doubled its income per capita was the United Kingdom. And it needed between 1780 to 1838 to be the first country in the history of humanity that doubled its income per capita. Then other countries learned from that experience. And the world record today is China. China, every 7, 8, 9 years, doubles its income per capita. This is beautiful. Today, we know what works and we know what doesn't work. There are no excuses anymore for poverty. There are no excuses for not being developed because we know what works and what doesn't work. Actually, if we look even longer in time, from the 11th century until the 18th century, there was no growth in the planet. This was called the Malthusian trap. We were trapped. The human condition was poverty, disease, hunger, early death. Life expectancy until the 18th century was less than 30 years of age. Most of us would be dead already. That was the human condition: poverty, disease, early death, and hunger. But the Industrial Revolution began, and then the economy of the planet grew almost 100% in the 19th century. Maybe it will grow this 21st century 2,000%, 3,000%. We do not know, but it is growing exponentially. We are living in the most incredible times of human history. Nothing compares to what we are seeing now and what we will see in the next few decades. I like to say that in the next 20 years, we are going to see more changes than in the last 2,000 years. I repeat, in the next 2 decades, we are going to see more changes than in the last 2 millennia. So get ready for a fantastic future. To talk about the different things, I like to explain the difference between manufacturing from the hands, and mindfacturing. For that, you can see that I like also Mickey Mouse. I am wearing my Mickey Mouse tie, and I compare Mickey Mouse with PDVSA, which is the oil company of Venezuela, the country where I was born. Venezuela is very famous because of oil, the petroleum industry, but Mickey Mouse sells more than all the petroleum from Venezuela. And this is the example of the industries of the future. We are moving into manufacturing. And this is important, and so that you do not forget, I will put my Mickey Mouse hat, which is made completely of petroleum. This is made of petroleum, and it costs $10, made of petroleum. A barrel of petroleum today is $50, this big, $50. How many Mickey Mouse hats can you make from a barrel of petroleum? Let's say 1,000 Mickey Mouse hats. Times $10 makes $10,000 in Mickey Mouse hats. And the barrel of petroleum is only $50. So the business is not in the raw materials, in the manufacturing. The business is in the mindfacturing. Futures, we talk about 4 ways to think from the past to the future. The worst way to look into the future is to be passive like an ostrich. So I hope that we do not have ostriches here. A little bit better is to be reactive, much better is to be proactive, but the best way is to be proactive. We can create the future. We can build the future we want. So I hope there are no ostriches here. Or if you are ostriches, you should be technological ostriches to see what is going to happen. In 2009, a new institution was created in Silicon Valley, in the heart of innovation in California. I am one of the founding faculty of Singularity University, and we look about all the technologies of the future that are converging in the next 20 years into the technological singularity that will change humanity forever. The idea of the singularity was promoted by Ray Kurzweil, who is an engineer from MIT, my alma mater, the Massachusetts Institute of Technology, and he talks that according to Moore's law, computers are doubling their power every 2 years. Actually, now faster. They are doubling their power, and the price is coming down. If this trend continues, between 2029 at the earliest, and 2045 at the latest, we will have computers with more power than our brains. We will have artificial intelligence that reaches human intelligence, and then more. And this will continue happening. You can see the incredible impacts of the singularity. In fact, Time magazine wrote a whole issue about the singularity, and they used the number 2045. But look at the subtitle, the year man becomes immortal. But for the ladies here, do not worry. Women also will become immortal. So this is happening faster and faster and faster. And I like to show the example of technology again. Some of you might remember this. I used this. These were the first memory devices and, in computers, the IBM punch cards. This basically has 1K of memory. 10 by 100, 1000, 1K. Or in Spanish, 1K. And this was a mechanical memory that after you made holes, you could not change because you could not take away the holes. And then electromagnetic memories were invented. I have one of these, which was also 1K. But this 1K was better than this because you could change, you could modify it. Also, it had a bigger hole. But 30 years ago, you had one mechanical K and one electromagnetic K. How much is 1K plus 1K? It's 1 kaka. 1 kaka. We had 1 kaka of memory 30 years ago. Fortunately, this evolved into all these different devices that you all know. And here I'm holding a pen drive of 128 gigahertz. Imagine what has happened in 30 years, from 1 kaka to 128 gigahertz. This is going to continue happening, and you are going to remember me in 30 years, and you will remember kaka. But this will be kaka in 30 years. In 30 years, we will have devices more powerful than your brain. And this will be the beginning of the technological singularity. This is happening in all sciences, also in medicine and biotechnology. And for that, I want to show you my human genome. All of you will sequence your genome in 5 to 10 years with little devices like this. This is a gene chip to sequence the genome. And you will sequence your genome, and you will know which diseases you are going to have genetically. You will know what you will die of. Isn't this incredible, interesting? But you will know what you might die of so that you do not die of that. Because medicine in the future will not be longer curative. Medicine will be preventive. We are going to prevent all diseases. Also, after you sequence your genome, you will know where your family comes from. This is my paternal line, and if you look at the bottom right, you can see that one of my ancestors is Genghis Khan. So no one here should fight with me. Now I will show you my mother's my maternal line, and you can see I descend from Maria Antoinette. I come from a very aristocratic family between Genghis Khan and Marie Antoinette. All of you will know where you come from after you sequence your genome, and you will be able to reconstruct your genealogical tree and find out for the first time if your father is really your father. But more interesting than looking into the past is looking into the future. And we are going to design our children in the future. This is an experiment I did with one of my students, sharing genes. We shared genes in a theoretical experiment to see how our children could be. We will design our children in the future. In fact, you are part of the last human generation that has not been designed. All of you are here by mistake. In the future, we will design our children, and this will be incredibly cheap. It was expensive. The Human Genome Project began in 1990, and it finished 13 years later in 2003, and it cost over $1 billion. The first human genome sequenced. 13 years, $1 billion. Today, in 2016, you can sequence your full genome for $900 in less than a week. And we expect that by 2025, you will sequence your full genome for $10 in 1 minute. I want you to look at those numbers. Those numbers are even more incredible than caca. Look at the exponential change in cost from $1 billion to $10, from 13 years to 1 minute. And I repeat, this is happening in all sciences because we are seeing exponential changes. Things are becoming faster, smaller, cheaper, and better. However, we do not understand exponential change because our brains evolved in a linear world. We think linearly, but technology changes exponentially. We normally compare between linear and exponential steps. If I give 30 linear steps, each one of 1 meter, after 30 meters, I have walked 30 steps, 30 meters. But if I walk exponentially and I double, after 30 doublings, I have gone around planet Earth 26 times. And I have walked over 1 billion meters. How many of you understand this? We do not understand this because we think linearly. But technology is changing exponentially. So get ready for an exponential world. 10 years ago, I went to visit famous science fiction writer Sir Arthur C. Clarke. And he's very famous, not just for Space Odyssey 2001 and many other books and films about science fiction, but also he wrote the 3 laws of the future. First law of the future: when a famous scientist says that something is possible, he's probably right. But when he says it is impossible, he's probably wrong. Second law of the future: the only way of discovering the limits of the possible is to venture past those limits into the impossible. Third law: any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So now I am going to talk about magic, because we are going to see magic in the next decades. We are going to see incredible things. And let's remember, 30 years ago, there were no computers. 30 years ago, I finished my bachelor's thesis at MIT using a caca technology called typewriter. I used a typewriter 30 years ago. 20 years ago, mobile phones were beginning. 10 years ago, Google, Facebook were growing. So what will happen in the next 20, 30 years? We are going to see magic. One of those things is we are going to cure aging. One of our professors at Singularity University says that aging is a disease, but it is a curable disease, and we expect to cure aging in the next 20 to 30 years. For that, my friend created a foundation called Methuselah Foundation, a very appropriate name, to do experiments with mice for rejuvenation and longevity. In the last 10 years, we have been able to increase the age of mice 3 times. Today, we have mice that live the equivalent of 300 human years. And this is only the beginning. We have mosquitoes, 4 times their average lifespan, worms, 6 times. This is only beginning. We are going to see magic in the next decades. Google created a company 3 years ago that is going to solve a little problem called death. We expect to cure aging in the next 2 to 3 decades. And you might have seen last week that Mark Zuckerberg and his wife, Priscilla Chan, are giving $3 billion in the next 10 years to cure all diseases. Their objective is to cure all diseases, including aging, in the next few years. We are living in incredible times. We are going to see what I call the death of death. We are going to kill death in the next few years. I have done many TV programs with History Channel and Discovery Channel on these issues, and more are going to come because people are beginning to understand that this will be possible. Because technologies are converging. The National Science Foundation in the USA talks about the 4 technologies of the future which are converging: nano, bio, info, and cogno, into the singularity in the next few years. And this is in the real world. But we also have the augmented virtual world, like Microsoft HoloLens, which has shared sharing virtual reality. We are creating new worlds. But let's come back to the real world and how complex are we human beings? How complex are we? In the year 2000, one scientist created the first artificial virus, an artificial virus created in a laboratory. 6 years ago, another scientist created the first artificial bacteria. So when will we be able to create artificial humans? If you look at the size of a human, it's not that big. One human has 3 gigabytes of data. This pen drive has 128 gigabytes. How many humans can I fit here? 128 divided by 3 is 42.6. I can fit 42 humans here and a little cat. This is the complexity of the hardware. And how complex is our software, the human software? Because we are walking information. According to the trends, in the next 10, 20 to 30 years, we will reach the complexity of the mouse brain, the monkey brain, and the human brain. And everything will be connected to everything. The Internet of Things that we know. Google, Facebook, Virgin Galactic, SpaceX, many companies are saying that they will connect the whole planet with free internet in 2 to 3 years. The whole planet, free internet. This will change humanity. There will be no limits to human knowledge. You will not be able to say anymore, I do not know. You will not be able to say that anymore. Everything will be connected with everything, and artificial intelligence is improving, as you know. We had Deep Blue, now we have Watson from IBM, and we have AlphaGo from Google, which is artificial intelligence that learns itself. You don't program it, you don't teach it, it learns by itself. This is the beginning of artificial intelligence that really reaches human levels, because the complexity of a human brain will actually be expanded with the exocortex. As Google says, they want to be the third half of your brain. Google wants to be the third half of your brain, and then the fourth half, and then the sixth half. We are going to increase the human capabilities, and we will connect our brains to other humans, to other animals. I just want to finish showing one of these technologies that will give us telepathy in the next 20 to 30 years. This is a very simple device which is in the market. You can buy very cheaply today for less than $100, that captures what is happening in the frontal lobe of your brain and transfer it to another person or to a computer. This is the beginning of telepathy. We will communicate brain to brain in the next few years. This will change the world. This will improve the human condition, human communication, empathy. So I just want to finish saying this is an incredible time to be alive. We are going to reach, hopefully, immortality, wealth, and we will colonize the universe. In the next few years, we will be colonizing Mars. So an applause to all of you, because we can create a better world. Thank you.
I think I'm gonna give this to someone. I don't know if Jose Luis allows me to give it out. It's actually worn out. So I hope you enjoy our previous talk. As Jose Luis was saying, innovation is actually touching every single aspect of our lives. I personally am looking forward to the whole mind-to-mind thing. Now I think about this sex mind-to-mind. That would be pretty cool. So our next panel, we're going to talk about the influence of this kind of innovation in the industry. So we have a panel, it's called the Industrial Revolution 4.0, Opportunities and Threats in Technology. Our next moderator and panel, she comes from one of the largest corporations here in Spain. She's been working for quite some many years there, as initially as Director of Strategy, and currently as Director of Innovation and Business Development at Endesa Iberia. Please welcome Mónica Espinosa.
Come on.
Please take a seat, and let me call you your wonderful panelists. So obviously, Jose Luis Cordeiro, you already know. Eric Giller from Speedy Packets. Big applause, please. Big applause. Marias and Sigrid, Dimitri Partners, and James Wise for Balderton Capital. Guys, enjoy. Monica, the stage is yours. Rock it. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Hello, everyone. Good afternoon to all of you. I hope you had lunch already, so you may or might sleep a little bit. And we are going to try to have this roundtable in a very fast, speedy, and interesting way, so you feel awake. I'm going to introduce the 4 speakers that we have. I'll start with Jose. You know him already. He was speaking first before us, but I will just follow the script. Let me read, because each of them has a bio, like, 1 or 2 pages of this. So we've done a big resume, but still it's quite long. So I'm going to read it to you. He is founding energy advisor and faculty at Singularity University in the NASA. And he has stated as a world citizen in our small planet, and this is on quotes, in a big unknown universe. He has studied, visited, and worked over 130 countries in the 5 continents. Jose has extensive work in technological foresight, futures studies, globalization, economic integration, long-term development, energy, education, and monetary policy. So please, an applause. Eric Geiler. He works for Speedy Packets. He has held top executive positions in growing startups and is the author of more than 20 patents, which is kind of a success, let me tell you. He's currently the CEO of Speedy Packets, a company that has dramatically improved the efficiency and performance of TOP, Transmission Control Protocol, the primary protocol for moving content around the internet. Among other positions, he's been CEO of W-Tricity Corporation, an MIT spin-off founded in 2007 to commercialize a new technology for wireless electricity invented by physicists from MIT. And he's also founder and CEO of BookTruth, a provider of telecom software and hardware platforms. So, Maria Sansigre, she's investment director in Dimitri Partners, an investment fund management firm specialized in clean tech and, among other things, smart cities. She's industrial engineer. She's specialized in energy technologies and has a particular experience in green IT. After the years, she has worked for IBM and IREC, the Catalonia Institute for Energy Research. Big applause. And last but not least, James Wise. He is a partner at Balderton Capital, a European venture fund that has invested over $2 billion into startups across Europe in the last 15 years. James has been at Balderton for 3 years and led investments into companies like 3D Hubs, the world's largest distributed manufacturing network for 3D printing, which is one of the things we are going to talk about, some of the technologies within this industry 4.0. Before that, he helped launch and run a social impact fund invested into companies which combine sustainable revenues with a positive social impact, and worked as a consultant to large manufacturing organizations while at McKinsey & Company. Okay, so let's start this roundtable. As you all know, it's about Industrial Revolution 4.0. I don't know how many new numbers we're going to add after the whatever and then before the 0.0, because there was the Revolution 2.0, then 3.0. We are now in 4.0, and the speed of the change of the number is faster and faster. So maybe next year we will be talking about the 5.0. Anyway, let's start with the first question. Industry 4.0 is being defined by cyber physical systems, smart factories, and smart products, and has been driven by technologies such as smart things, big data, 3D printing, etc. In your opinion, I would like to know, and the audience too, what are the key technologies to watch in the near future, and what do you think will be the effect that they will have in this 21st century industrial revolution? Would you like to start, Jose?
I would like to mention a few things that are going to happen in 1, 2 to 3 decades. One is telepathy. We will be able to communicate brain to brain probably in 2 decades, and this will change the whole thing, as you might imagine. Another one is indefinite lifespans. I think we are going to cure aging, and we are going to rejuvenate people. That also will change everything, as you might imagine. Third, we are going to have artificial intelligence reaching human intelligence level. That will change everything. Fourth, we are going to begin colonizing Mars. That will change everything. So there are so many incredible technologies. I can only tell you I'm so excited to be alive at this time.
Maria.
Well, in my case, I think I'm more conservative, and I think nanotechnologies is one, maybe in a short term, is one of the top technologies to be watched by the industry 4.0 because of the Internet of Things. Nanomaterials and nanotechnologies can be used to make the sensors, which are very important in the industry 4.0. Another thing is that nanomaterials are used in the 3D printing, and of course for printed inks also, and printed electronics, and can be used also for industrial water treatment, and a lot of applications that can, for example, reduce the cost of the manufacturing, the supply chain and the manufacturing process. So I think that these nanotechnologies can revolutionize the industry a lot.
Okay. Eric, do you want to add something?
Yeah, I was going to, so I don't know if nanotechnology was, I was going to be a little more conservative, but even somewhere between, or maybe a little bit to that side. And I was going to say, IoT, big data, and machine learning and factory automation are huge. And actually, what was wild for me, being from the US, was walking around here today at the marketplace, and I saw people that have already recognized that with little companies that are getting started up to go after those things.
Excellent. James?
Yeah, and I have to add, I think machine learning is one of the areas I'm most excited about. Effectively, industrial manufacturers have been cleaning data sets for us for the last 10 years, and they're going to have to clean their data sets a little bit further as we connect more devices and we collect more data. And when you have clean data sets, you can do some incredible things on top of that to improve processes, innovate more, and ways to help humans better understand that data with machine learning and ultimately artificial intelligence, I think, is one of the biggest areas. So I completely agree with what's said there. The one other thing I'd add is the expansion of human communication and societies and cultures. Maybe that's via telepathy, I hope so one day, but even through social networks, the fact that you can now tap into the resources. I know that a lot of people will be thinking this for personal social reasons, but actually for industrial reasons as well. The resources of cultures and universities and people of different backgrounds from across the world is actually going to have as big an impact on manufacturing as design as it had already had on the social space.
Thank you. Actually, this links to the second question, which is, how do you think this redefining of the manufacturing, the design processes, and the supply chain will impact on the labor force? Who wants to answer? James?
Yeah, I can start. I think that there's opportunities and threats here, right? Already we've seen that as machines have become, and we've seen this historically, as machines have become more automated and taken on some of the heavier burdens of labor, it's generally meant that people have managed to upskill and therefore become more productive. If some days, if I was a designer or a manufacturer today, I'd be excited by the advent of greater robotics. I'd be excited by the advent of machine learning. I'd be excited by the rapid falling costs to design and produce something, because it means that I, myself, can be more productive, design and create more things for less. Now, the bigger challenge then is to the big manufacturers. How do they look after and train up their workforce? Can they train up their workforce while at the same time keeping them employed? Because actually, if I'm in the labor force today in manufacturing, I may think to myself, well, with a 3D printer, with some CAD design tools, with the right social scraping data, I could actually start my own manufacturing design unit. And so I think that there's big opportunities, but also the big problem with saying, well, robotics is great and great machine learning is great because it means we get pushed higher up the productivity scale is, that requires retraining. That requires a lot of learning. And I think that without resources pumped into that, we will see a big shift in where labor is today and where it is in the future. And that's going to rely on both national level investment as well as local companies investing in their workforce to get them up that productivity chain.
Okay, Eric, would you like to?
Yeah, so, I mean, if we call 3D printing additive manufacturing process, right, I think that, at least this is just an observation that I've made calling on large corporations. I think they get it, and they recognize that that's going to have to change. Whether it changes, and then the other question is geographically, where does that become a problem? And it may not become as big a problem in the knowledge-based economies where, you know, it's the designers and the people like that are working on it, but maybe more so in places where you're literally, you know, either adding a lot of human labor or just stamping the same thing out time and time again.
Excellent. Jose, would you like?
Yes, I would like to say that we have to reconsider what is work. Maybe the future of work is that it has no future. Because we will not be doing any repetitive labor, any boring work. A friend of mine tells me that the factories of the future will have only two employees. One will be a dog, and the other one will be a human. The human is there to feed the dog, and the dog is to stop the human from touching the machines. So actually, we might not need to work as we do today. We will be using our creativity. We will have more free time. We will travel more. And we will redefine what work means. It is not what we have today. Actually, if you have read the Bible or some of these scriptures, work is a disgrace. It's actually because you have done something sinful and then you have to work. So in the future, we might not have work as we know it today.
Okay. Well, this aspect of having more free time, at least, you know, pleasures me. I don't know about you all, that it's a great perspective to look for. Let me ask you, Maria, the next question,
okay.
and we'll start with you. Regarding the energy industry, which is also mine, what do you think about energy efficiency? Do you think it's a key objective within the Industry 4.0? And do you think that energy management will be a basic basis for supply chain?
I think yes, considering that, for example, in energy-intensive industries, the 30% of the operating cost comes from the energy bill. And on the other hand, the 30% of the total and of the global energy consumption comes from industry. Right now, or what I see is that in the becoming years and currently also is that market competitiveness is pushing to the companies and the production and the factories to fix lower prices. So this is almost mandatory to reach lower costs. And if the 30% of the cost comes from energy bill, it's obvious that one of the things that we have to do in a production chain is to reduce the energy. But not only from the point of view of economical point of view, but I think it's very important from a sustainable point of view also, no? And this is the part of the energy efficiency. Why trying to be more productive, employing less quantity of energy? But energy management in industry, I think, opens a door to optimize the production, but not only in the energy consumption part. If you analyze, for example, the data from an energy management from a machine, if you have change of voltage or peaks of consumption, maybe it's because something is wrong, and maybe it's because you have some problem in your supply chain. So I think the analysis of the energy behavior around the machinery and the production chains can help you also to optimize your production, the production of the proper. So
What do you think? Sorry?
Sorry, yeah, so that's.
Okay. What do you think, Eric? Because we all know that in the United States, there are some states pretty much focused on energy efficiency initiatives from a long time ago. So what's your perspective on this?
Well, I have to say that it's changing a little bit, and there's two sides to it. One is I was at Berkeley, at the university, not to be confused with Berkeley College of Music, which is in Boston, a couple weeks ago, and the professor there that's one of the energy efficiency guys, it actually bothered me all night and on the flight back when he told me that I'm repeating a statistic, okay? That 40% of all energy in the world is actually consumed with heating and cooling and electricity for buildings, whether it's your home or a building. And that struck me as like, wow. And the thing they're working on there is, why don't you heat and cool the people as opposed to the space, right? But it struck me from an efficiency standpoint, we haven't begun to look at the problems. And U.S. is a huge consumer of energy. And having worked in wireless power for a while, usually people say, isn't that less efficient than using a wire? And the answer is, depends what you're trying to do. But every time I'd hear that, I'd think of sort of the hypocrisy in sort of all of the things we do. So first of all, you have, and actually someone I heard this from energy department person saying that, and by the way, Google denies this a little bit, but there's a lot of information about, one Google search takes up, it's like turning on a 60-watt light bulb for 17 seconds.
Wow.
Right? And so when you start saying, I'm going to put all this stuff in the cloud, which a lot of us are interested in doing that, it's like, man, are you sucking away a lot of energy that people aren't even counting? And if you think you don't count stuff, I'll give you two more examples. Every time, and I just did this, plugged in my cell phone to charge it, that transformer that goes between the USB and the transformer is sucking up 25% of the energy, because by law, it's got to be 75% efficient. And you could be, with a direct DC connection,
Okay.
Doing that. And then the final one, they used to always sort of, when I thought about it, is the consumption of AA batteries in the world. The last time I tried to do a count of it, it was like 40 billion a year. And these things are getting literally consumed and thrown away. And you don't think about it because it's so little, but 40 billion a year times, and it's a terrifically inefficient way to transfer energy, but it's super convenient to all of us. So I think that there needs to be a little bit of a mindset that I'm not sure, at least, whether we're ready to step up to that or not yet.
Okay. Jose, would you like to add something?
Yeah, I would like to say that I agree with efficiency, because we basically waste about almost half of the energy production is wasted. And almost all of it in transportation. So when we move into electric cars that are incredibly efficient, actually the total energy produced will be reduced, because we will not waste a large amount. But then I am not concerned about efficiency, because we have incredible amounts of solar power. And I wanted to show here one of the new optical photovoltaic cells that are going to be massively produced very soon. This is transparent, but then you can also store energy. You can put a little battery here, even though this is transparent. And so you can produce and store. We will put this on windows, on floors, everywhere. Fossil fuels will remain fossil in 20 years, and we will move into solar energy. And because we have enormous amounts of solar power, thousands of times more solar energy reach our planet than we use, humanity as a civilization today. So I'm not worried about scarcity. I'm worried about using it properly and not wasting it. But there is no energy crisis. There is only a crisis in our imagination. And I think we are solving that imagination crisis now.
Okay, thank you, Jose. Actually, what you have just shown leads me to the next question that I want to ask Eric to answer, which is entrepreneurs. Probably many of you are entrepreneurs. We have seen a huge increase of the number of startups in the last years. And I would like to ask you all, how do you think that these entrepreneurs are contributing to the Industry 4.0? And how do you think that this evolution of the Industry 4.0 will be changed by the effect of the entrepreneurs? Eric?
Well, so either being a recovering entrepreneur or whatever, and then also I'm a lousy investor because everything sounds good to me, but all you have to do is look around here. I mean, look around the marketplace. And what you'll see, there are huge opportunities because it's been disaggregated in a way that, whether it was the company I saw that was doing things for bed and breakfast to put in sensors in places that was displaying here today to make it more efficient for the owners of these places to cut down energy consumption, or the IoT, which Internet of Things does get a little overhyped, so you have to be a little bit careful about that. But there's wonderful opportunities for people that want to start businesses to jump in, and the barriers to entry are low enough that the largest companies don't have to do them, which means that when you have a great idea, that it can fit very well within that ecosystem. And I think that the larger corporations, which often represent the distribution channel for a lot of these businesses, do actually embrace this sort of thinking, and because they're looking for the next big thing too.
Yeah, and I have to add there, so I talk about imagination crisis. I had a conversation the other day with someone who was complaining about how expensive it is to start a gaming startup these days because it's so expensive and competitive to buy users through Facebook and hire the right marketers. And I just thought, but it's cheaper than ever to build a company that's attacking genetics or attacking manufacturing or going after machine learning or AI. It's never been cheaper to enter those spaces. So actually the barriers to entry in so many new fields are being opened up at speed, and a speed which we really haven't become cognizant of yet because we've been so focused on a few big startups in certain spaces making money, that I think we're going to see a revolution actually in many, many new industries rather than the ones we've already experienced, thanks to these opening costs and thanks to ambitious entrepreneurs who are willing to take on that level of imagination and use this new platform of free and cheap distribution that we have in front of us.
Okay, let me go to the fifth question because we don't have that much time. And I would ask you to think of 1 minute answer, okay? It's a very easy question. Who do you think is going to lead this industrial revolution, and how do you think governments and institutions are dealing with it? Any of you?
When you say who, it could be countries, or it could be groups of people or companies?
Whatever, open answer.
Well, I would say individuals, because we have an incredible power to create, to imaginate. I like to say that we have to move from manufacturing to mindfacturing, and the human imagination is basically limitless. There is no limit to what we can imagine. There is no limit to what we can create. So individuals, I think we are the most powerful resource.
Yeah, I agree. I think the only difference I'd say is that we've done a big report on talent recently, and I really noticed how Europe's changing so that many people who are starting new companies now, challenging companies, actually have already worked in big technology companies. They already have that experience. And so we're seeing a shift from people who are coming straight out of banking or consulting or whatever to people with slightly more experience now because we've had a first wave of companies, some of which succeeded, some of which have failed. We've taken those learnings, and now we can apply those. So I think it will be individuals, and I think it will be individuals who've been through the mill once or twice before.
Okay.
And just to take the non-entrepreneurial sort of approach to this. I'd put a plug in for the big companies because I think they do represent, whether it's, here in Europe, Siemens obviously stands to benefit pretty substantially. I think all of the energy companies, providers are going to do that. General Electric in the US, that, they see these problems and they see them as opportunities. And I think it dovetails nicely with the, what did you call it,
Mindfacturing.
Yeah, so.
I think automotive industry maybe will lead the industry 4.0 because they are quite automatized and they are, in fact, BMW has already implemented some interesting projects in.
Okay. Well, thank you to all of you for being with us here, and thank you guys. You made my work really easy. So thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. So we're going to have to say goodbye and give them a break to our wonderful band. So please, big applause for Le Groove. Thank you very much, guys. Pleasure sharing the stage with you guys. And our next speaker, I think it's an incredible pleasure, an incredible, exceptional situation that we have with our next speaker. Someone that is the special envoy for the program in the Netherlands called Startup Delta, former head of cabinet for Nelly Kroes from the European Commission, founder of Startup Fest Europe, and in general, someone that has been fighting for his country to push the startup ecosystem higher and higher. As with his own words, he described it, we want to create the West Coast within the Netherlands. Please give an incredible and warm hello to His Royal Highness, Prince Constantine of the Netherlands.
Hi, thanks for having me. And excuse me, I will kind of be a bit on the policy side of things. So I won't be telling you about how we're going to land on the moon, on Mars, and all that, and where the next technology is going to drive us for the coming 20 years. What I really want to look at is what it is to be an entrepreneur in Europe. So what could make Europe successful? We always see this comparison with Silicon Valley, with other places. What is it that actually we have that is competitive? And for that, I want to focus on mind frames. For instance, take this South Summit. It's, if you look at it, it sounds very reasonable if you are from the Netherlands that you call this South Summit. It's pretty unreasonable if you look at the map and you think that Spain is pretty much in the north of the world. So is it because it is South America? Is that the link? So South, and in fact, if you're in Bali, South means that you're under the summit, because the summit is the holy mountain of Agung. And for them, it means under the summit. So you'd be very strange to call that a South Summit. So everything is framed. The Netherlands is a small country. So I try to say, well, no, we're actually the west coast of Europe. And doesn't stop with our borders, because we've got Germany, we've got Belgium, and all of these countries. Actually, a lot of that is coming together in our region of Europe. It's not about these boundaries. So what I want you to know and what you feel is that, in fact, we set the frames. And we are all actually at the center of the world. Nowadays, technology allows us to be at the center of the world. It allows us to reach out to anywhere in the world. It allows us to explore things we couldn't explore before. It also allows us to connect with people that are not in our vicinities, but are everywhere. So what's important is that how we frame ourselves actually allows us to box ourselves in or liberate us. It's also when we look at Silicon Valley and Europe, we look at Silicon Valley, we see shining big companies, we see this great success, masses of venture capital going into incredible entrepreneurs. And we look at Europe and you see it's old and slow and bureaucratic. On the other hand, if you go to Silicon Valley, you can also look at through another lens. You can see that there's a water problem, there's a transport problem, there's an education problem, there's everything when it comes to the public sector is in a really dire state. And notwithstanding that, they're producing these incredible companies and allow people to dream big, and amazing things have happened over there. So what happens is that we as Europeans, we tend to go to Silicon Valley and we try to pick it, and we come back and we say, oh, we have to do this too. We have to build Silicon Valley in Europe. And I always caution when I hear that. And I say, well, it's fine, we can look at Silicon Valley. And the conclusion should be, just kill the government. Because the government is not a factor that's driving Silicon Valley, where that's very different, obviously, in Europe. But you can also look east. You can look at China. What China is doing doing amazing stuff. And you see the speed of innovation and growth in China is really incredible. And the surface, the sheer surface that is covered by companies and businesses and research centers that are innovating is mind-boggling. But then we know that there's a downside to that too, strong government involvement. And does the government, is that the best position to choose winners? You'll have a lot of nepotism and other things coming in. So my plea would be, Europe should go its own way. Europe has strong governments, very strong institutions, have incredible potential. And if we don't just get stuck in the process, if we don't get stuck in looking at Europe only from the negative side, but actually try to focus on what is good, we actually see that in all the charts and all the indexes, the European countries are actually dominating in sense of competitiveness, in innovation, in quality of life and those matters. So it's just a matter of perception. And that is important because the way you frame these things and also the time frame you take for your policy settings will determine where we end. So whatever we do today, our acts today, and the way we frame where we are busy with will determine where we end up in 5, 10, and 20 years. And I think it's important that our policymakers therefore think a bit more like startups in a way, that they allow themselves to think big and define a purpose, and then plan ahead, but also act now. Act means invest in talent, invest in those inputs that are essential for our countries to be more competitive. Because if the EU fails, and we've seen a lot of that, and we have a lot of discussion around that in Europe recently, then we did it to ourselves. We did it because we were focusing on process. We did it because we were focusing on our internal problems. We did it because we've got values that we didn't apply. We did it because we don't trust in our strength. But we can also choose a different way. We can also choose Europe as a platform for innovation, a platform for growth, a market where our startups can actually grow and find new markets, where you can actually feed off all of the innovation, all the scientific prowess that is actually apparent on the continent. And there's really no reason why not. We've got great companies. We have ARM, we have ASML, we have Booking.com in the Netherlands, we have BlaBlaCar, you have everywhere, and masses of the companies here prove that it is actually possible. And it is the mindset, if you want to be in that space, if you want to compete globally, that is important to make it happen. And we've seen in London, fintech coming up, and London is an international hub when it comes to VC, when it comes to startups. We see Berlin coming up. We've seen Stockholm very strong. There's no reason why Stockholm would be such a successful hub, but it is because entrepreneurs are collaborating with VC and are making incredible companies possible. So what should be done from the government side? Because I'm a representative of Startup Delta. We are a government-initiated public-private partnership because the government acknowledged that they didn't really have the tools or the insights or the networks to reach out into the communities of startups. And they felt that it was important that this topic that didn't get enough political attention would get political attention and would be put on the map. And that we would look at basically the whole journey of an entrepreneur from the start, from gathering the skills to an exit, and see where are the barriers and to address those. That is possible. You can do that. If a government takes the perspective of can do, if they take that mindset, if they take the mindset of learning from what's going on, and not just saying, well, it's in Silicon Valley, we have to copy Silicon Valley, and put a lot of money against that. Or if they say it's impossible to copy China because we don't have that kind of money. But if you actually look at where the energy is, and it's with the entrepreneurs, it's with the VC, it's with also in science, then work around that. And it's no rocket science to do so. We can actually look at Silicon Valley and see, well, what is good there? Well, what is really good is the University of Stanford, is it Berkeley, it's the networks, it's venture capitalists being entrepreneurs themselves, these repeat entrepreneurs that are enabled by the system. We tend to discourage them through taxes, but it's possible. If you look at the UK has also introduced tax systems that actually allows you to reinvest, and that is extremely important. So there's a lot you can do. You can look at Scandinavia, where networks having these enforced each other and empowered each other to create great companies. You can look at Tel Aviv. There's no reason why Tel Aviv would be successful if you look at it on all objective terms. But they've managed, in combination with the government, in combination with some very powerful entrepreneurs, and also an outreach into other innovation hubs like Silicon Valley and other pools of funding. And they've managed to do so. So my plea is not only that it can be done, it has been done, and if we don't do it, then the world is going to move on. This is a global play. Everywhere in the world we see incubators, accelerators, startup programs emerge, and it has never been this easy to start a company anywhere in the world and service a market anywhere in the world, and at a cost that is highly, highly competitive. So we can do it, as long as our egos don't get in the way, our politics don't get in the way, and our politicians and policymakers actually make this a priority and say that entrepreneurs are actually driving this innovation. That if we want what Singularity University is telling us, that means not only science, that means applied science, because the costs need to go down. The cost of supply and demand need to go down so that you can actually share the technologies and the businesses among the people in the broadest possible sense. And I think we owe it. We owe it to the young. We owe it to the entrepreneurs. We owe it to ourselves that we make this possible. So if a government doesn't acknowledge this, and I don't know how many government officials are in this room, just by looking at you, I think most people here are entrepreneurs. But then why don't you come here? And we're going to have a commissioner on stage who fully understands this, and who from Europe tries to enhance this. And it's not easy and not difficult. I mean, we've got the blueprint ready. There is a scale-up manifesto, and all the policy measures are actually there. It just requires you to make the priorities. For instance, opening up public procurement. Why is it so difficult for a government to allow startups to experiment and to work with them, to build prototypes and do procurement in that way, instead of the old-fashioned way that always favors the big companies? Why do we make our VAT so complicated in Europe? We can simplify that. Startup visa. Let startups. We all want these people. Let them move around freely. We want a startup visa in Europe. And just to say, in the Netherlands, we are currently pretty much in an upswing. I think we're doing pretty well, and we have a shortage of talent. Feed that need, feed that demand, and we find it extremely difficult to get those people. So we would love to get people that don't have work in, for instance, a country like Spain, to come to the Netherlands and work for our companies. And I think if government understands that this is an engine for jobs, that this is a future for the companies, future for the economy, and that we are actually in a global transition, a global technology transition, but also a global business transition that will have big shifts in political influence and strategic shifts, that also will challenge our traditional industries that are still more or less in the industrial age. We have a Industry 4.0, but that is actually what we should have been doing in 2010. We're now in 2016, and we are beyond that. We are in a much more virtual space than we were when that concept was developed. So we need to move on. If we accept that, and if we accept that this impact of technology is going to be profound, then it's a no-brainer. And it's a long-term play. We know that for the coming 5, 10, 20 years, we need to be in this game. We need to develop those companies. We need to play that role, be it in Spain, be it in the Netherlands, be it in the UK, be it in the US, and we're all challenged by this. Because don't forget, Silicon Valley, Boston, New York, they in the US are outstanding places as well. If you are from Illinois or you're from Washington State, you are also trying to compete with these places. So all of the world is competing to be like that, and we are actually moving forward in that sense, and we are showing that we can do that. So, in my view, the key to success is only and solely in our minds. And we don't need to look anywhere else than there. So if you decide to aim low, it's likely that you will shoot low. If you say you can't, it's very likely that you won't. And if you say, yes, we can, then it's likely that I will respond to you, yes, we should. Thank you very much. And now I had 2 minutes to go. You were not ready for that, were you?
I was ready. I was ready. I was just chatting with the band.
Ah, okay.
We were about to, play something for you, but
the band's gone?
No, the band's coming back.
Okay. So
they're here. They're here for you. Don't worry.
Yeah.
So,
what are they going to play? National anthem?
I don't know. Maybe we can ask them. Star Wars.
No, I'm not a Trekkie and not a Star Wars fan either.
Okay, man. Give me track. What do you want to play?
Something Spanish.
Something Spanish. Okay, guys. Something Spanish. You can do that. Okay. Something Spanish. Like what? La Macarena? Macarena, everyone?
But that's.
Come on, guys. One Macarena.
Yeah, but only if you dance the Macarena.
I'll dance to the Macarena. Don't worry. Can we have some Macarena? Yeah, we want to dance Macarena. Hey, come on, play us. Come on, guys. Let's do this. Everyone remember? There we go. Yeah, well, it's a version. It's kind of a version. Dame tu cuerpo alegría Macarena, que tu cuerpo es para dar la alegría y cosa buena. Dale a tu cuerpo alegría Macarena. Hey! There we go. Thank you very much, guys. Your Highness, big pleasure. Thank you very much for being here. It's a very big pleasure having you here. Hope you're enjoying, and you keep enjoying.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Guys, big applause, please. Thank you again for the band. And our next panel, we're going all the way to something that matters. So if you have nude pictures on your phones, this is your talk, because we're going to talk about cybersecurity. So it's a panel that's called Los Galácticos, Cybersecurity, Silicon Valley, and IPOs. And I want to welcome the moderator for the next panel, Grégoire Dupadirac, investor manager at Orange Digital Ventures. Please welcome Greg. Please welcome Julio Casal, CEO of Alien Bolt, and most recently 4IQ, and finally Alberto Yepez, co-founder of Trident Capital Cybersecurity. Big applause. Thank you, guys.
Hello, Julio. Hello, Alberto. I'm very pleased to be with you today. So, Julio, you are the co-founder of Alien Bolt, and maybe you have some words about Alien Bolt.
Yes, so I'm one of the founders of Alien Bolt. Now I just launched a new startup called 4IQ, and also one of the co-founders. And, should explain a little bit of Alien Bolt. Just very briefly.
How many employees and how much money you earn every year?
Yeah, very brief summary of Alien Bolt. We've spoken the story, but for those who haven't heard of it. So, Alien Bolt was a garage startup. It started in Madrid, 40,000 euros to people, and they did all the long journey up to what it could be today. Hopefully, it could be a unicorn. It may be a unicorn. We raised more than $100 million, 5, 6 venture capitals in Silicon Valley, top names, including Trident Cyber Capital. So it's a complete journey from the small startup, bridging the gap up to to Silicon Valley.
Yeah, it's impressive. Alberto, you are we are co-founder of Trident Capital Cybersecurity. You are the largest firm dedicated to cybersecurity in the world. Yeah. Maybe you have some words to describe Trident Capital.
Yeah, well, we see a tremendous opportunity right now to invest and create new businesses to protect individuals, government, and businesses. So it's top of mind with all the stuff that is going on with cyber terrorism and all the online banking and all the stuff. We're concerned about our privacy. So Trident Capital Cybersecurity was founded exclusively to invest in companies in cybersecurity. Prior to that, we were investors in AlienBolt. I'm currently the largest investor in AlienBolt and chairman of the board. But also we'll tell you a little bit about how we also re-engaging with Julio to invest in 4IQ. So cybersecurity as a market today is about $100 billion market. I'm moving in the next 5 to 6 years to be a $1 trillion market. So the opportunity is tremendous, and I think innovation is happening everywhere, not just in Silicon Valley. And we're very happy to be investors in Spanish companies.
Julio, which is very impressive in AlienBolt is that cybersecurity clusters are much more in the US or in Israel. How come a Spanish startup managed to be one of the leaders in cybersecurity? How did you manage?
Yeah, so again, it's a very, very long journey, and with a different number of, just imagine from that small size to the size that is today, but so many phases and so different nature in the challenges. So at the beginning was obviously the vision, the technological vision, then it was financial, then it was legal, there was a lot of legal challenges. Then we have to reinvent, we landed in Silicon Valley, and I can tell you it's absolutely different, the market there as compared to the competitiveness, all the ecosystem. So we have to reinvent ourselves at least 1 or 2 times, re-architect completely the company, but with the help of our partners. And then the key for us was, so how do you do it from that? No, how do you overcome that incredible competitive disadvantage that, in my opinion, you have been an entrepreneur in Spain and launching compared to the US huge market and the US incredible funding ecosystem. So I think the key for us was we envisioned a product. It didn't exist. We envisioned a market. It was the CM market prior to 2 years before. But not only that, we also envisioned a go-to-market strategy, defensive positioning, which was an open source community that allow us to be more competitive, generate leads, create a brand, a global brand with very, very small money, because the global brand in cybersecurity is supposed to be 100 million in cost, and we didn't have 100 million in cost. So all that competitive advantages allowed us, gave us the opportunity, and we were kind of defensive positioning, able to compete with these big guys. No? And then, of course, when we landed there, everything re-architected, and the key was to find the right partners. No? So entering into Silicon Valley is obviously not easy. You're not going to go there. It's a lot of funds and a lot of money, but it's very difficult to open that door. No? But the key. So I think it was a chain of trust, and the door was opened by Alberto. And after that, Alberto brought some executives, very well-known executives, who they brought other Kleiner Perkins, which is a big name in the event. And that chain of trust led us to create this big company that we have today.
Okay. Alberto, do you see other cluster, other ecosystem developing in the world, in Spain, Europe, and?
Yeah, innovation in cybersecurity, like I said, is happening everywhere. You always talk about Silicon Valley as one of the centers of innovation. In the US alone, we see a lot of innovation coming out of the government, many of the intelligence agencies. So in Washington, D.C. and Maryland, we see a lot of companies coming in entering the market. Of course, Israel is another market where you see a lot of cyber entrepreneurs. But Spain has its own fair share. And through Julio and through coming to South Summit and other things, we've been exposed to very interesting companies. And so the ecosystem is not just about the entrepreneur, it's the culture of risk, because Julio effectively left a comfort zone being in Spain pretty much one-way ticket to Silicon Valley and then hoping to take a risk and find the right partners. But then you need to have the corporate partners to help you buy the products. And I think what we're seeing in Spain specifically, just look at South Summit, customers like BBVA, Santander, Telefónica are beginning to support entrepreneurs by validating the solutions. Then you have venture funds that are taking the early risk, Adara Ventures, a number of them, Kibo Ventures, that actually are giving the initial money to get the Spanish entrepreneur to be noted by other venture funds like ours in the States. And then you have now, besides the entrepreneurs, you have the venture funds, the regional venture funds, the global venture funds, and then you start competing at a global level. And there you need the government to take an active role to give facilities to transfer a company with a Spanish intellectual property into the US. For instance, for us, we were one of the very first companies in Alien Bolt to actually use a new law that basically called redomestication.
Well, I think we were the first, I think.
We were the first, and in the audience we see some of our partners like the legal firm Cuatro Casas. Pedro Fernandez was very instrumental to teach us what needed to be done, but worked with a firm in the US to actually accomplish that. And since then, I think they've done more than 30. But it's important to understand that the ecosystem is not just a set of individuals and a chain of trust, but there's a lot of other groups that need to come together. And the same thing happens with Israel or any other groups that come about.
Coming back to the very beginning of Alien Vault, how it was difficult for you to get the first support in Spain regarding corporate and
the first, sorry?
Support.
Yeah, so we had a great venture capital here. It's Adara Venture Partners in Spain. And that gave us the gasoline to fly to Silicon Valley. So I think we were lucky with that. Of course, that was the first round, a smaller size round, etc. But yeah, I guess that we're lucky. There's good venture capitals in Spain to bridge you and try to. And the interesting thing is now in the new company, Adara is again with us, as well as Trident. And Adara has been also fueling many startups or some startups to do the same trip, the same journey. So I think we're bridging this gap slowly, creating this bridge, creating this ecosystem. No?
What is different in a Spanish startup, and when we invested in Alien Bolt already had customers like Telefónica, like Metro Madrid, and large corporations. Sometimes in Silicon Valley you have the idea, comes out of the university, they don't have clients, they have, this is what I'm going to build, and they make you believe. But what's very interesting to us is that when we talk to Julio, he already have a number of open source customers that, while they're free, converting into freemium model, but also there were some paying customers, and they give us a lot of confidence because many people validated the solution, and our job was to commercialize it to compete at a global level, not only with the skills of product management and how you go to market and create the partner ecosystem, but more importantly, bring in the executives that had the experience to compete at a global level. And so you start with different teams at different levels, and like Julio says, you reinvent yourself multiple times, and right now, Alien Bolt is shifted to become probably the most interesting company for the middle market, because if you look at the cybersecurity trends, the two big issues you have is it's a very complex problem, and there are not that many cybersecurity professionals. There's a shortage. So you need to bring automation, you make it easy to adopt. And the other thing is you have a lot of companies and you have to integrate. So the large corporations had to pay to integrate these solutions, but in the case of Alien Bolt, they provided an integrated solution that it was easily adopted, consumed, and deployed. Now, we use a velocity sales model that everybody talks about. Instead of having people directly calling every single company, we sell a lot of that software over the phone. Imagine selling security and compliance over the phone. Right now, Alien Bolt has about 5,000 customers. Last quarter alone, we added 500 customers in one quarter. So you see that the momentum in the building, in the brand, and in the product, it's a very coordinated effect. But you learn a lot in the process.
So Alien Bolt is the next future Spanish unicorn?
We don't know, hopefully. The momentum is there,
yep.
So we'll see.
Yeah.
Do you think that it's necessary to go to the Silicon Valley to become a unicorn? It's the only journey?
I'll give you your opinion, Julio, and I can tell you after that.
Oh, that's a very difficult question that you can answer.
Well, you know, unicorns it's just elusive. It's more primarily associated with companies that go play in the consumer market. Enterprise companies take a little longer. And, you know, you have unicorns in China, but they're primarily consumer related. In terms of B2B or enterprise solutions or business solutions, yes, I think we have a lot of the elements to be the unicorn, but more importantly, you have to be stable, and you're not looking to just add the number of customers or downloads. In these cases, you know, you're protecting governments, you're protecting businesses, you're protecting individuals, and it's a pretty serious business. So yeah, I think we have the potential. We have hired the right individuals to prepare the company for a public offering. We have a board of directors that have been in public companies, so we're doing all the right things to actually do that. And you know, depending on how the market momentum continues, we'll probably get there. And but it's a journey, like you say. You learn a lot, right?
Long journey.
Yeah.
Alberto, for you, what are the next biggest challenge regarding cybersecurity? Which are the main trends you can see right now?
Like I said, the two biggest issues, there's not enough cybersecurity professionals. You have to integrate solutions. So a lot of the solutions are moving to the cloud, but that's broadly speaking in the market. But I think that there are multiple trends because there's new platforms emerging, like mobility, virtualization, the cloud, social networks, and all they're coming together because it's changing the way we learn, the way we communicate, the way we collaborate. You begin seeing information that appears in the deep web and the dark web, where you didn't know you were breached, and all of a sudden Yahoo, a corporation that a lot of people admire, realized that they lost personal information of 500 million customers. And they perhaps didn't know it, but that started showing up in the deep web and the dark web. And one of the most interesting things that we realized, and when Julio came with the idea, look, everybody's focusing on today's market, but this new market in cyber intelligence is amazing, and I have an idea, and we can do it again, and the same teams that we work together with in Granada and Madrid can do something about it, and that's how 4IQ gets born. So maybe, Julio, you can share a little bit what you saw in this new trend that is beginning to get a lot of information being traded in the deep web and dark web.
From my perspective, there's a new battlefront, there's a digital war, absolutely there. So if you look at just, for example, ISIS, the cyber jihad, so this is a terrorist, they're putting bombs, they're killing people, but everything is orchestrated, all the propaganda, all the recruitment is done digital. It wouldn't exist, ISIS, without. So that new space that is called the deep and dark web is a parallel internet, and there are all these terrorism, criminals, and hacktivisms orchestrating, trading, exchanging, selling, and buying. So that was the vision for 4IQ. And we said, oh, this is such a big problem, such a big exposure, a space of exposure. We need to track that. This is a new chapter for security you need to track. And the interesting thing is this converging of cybersecurity and cyber intel, because we're looking at terrorism, we're looking at really tracking people, groups of people, companies, all those relationships, rather than the classical technical assets. No? Cybersecurity is more IP addresses, and so the techniques are more intel-based, but we see that convergence. No? Cyber physical security and intel teams and cyber teams, they're really converging into that space. So that's 4IQ, the new company we launched.
Why don't you share what we did in Panama before a lot of...
Just examples of those are Panama Papers. No? So we were, Alberto and myself, we were in Panama 1 year before Panama Papers. We were talking to actually these guys, guys that had this huge problem. And we said, hey guys, at some point, there's no way this is going to happen. At some point, one lawyer data is going to go into the deep and dark web. And this is going to create an earthquake, a global earthquake, because it's such an amount of quantity of exposure, liable information out there. And it did happen. No? Another good example is what you were saying. Yahoo breach is supposed to be 1 billion records, not just 500 million. Can you believe that is 1/5 or 1/6 of the internet population in just one breach? In the current year, we've had more than 2 billion records of PII, personal information, out there. which is 1/3 of the internet population. So the problem is just growing. No? It's just incredibly big. We're seeing that.
And you know, the reason why all these breaches happen is because there's money to be made. So when you steal, let's say, a retail company loses the customer data. So oftentimes it's credit cards is often targeted to be able to get those numbers. And so when you collect, there was a retail in the US that lost about 72 million records with credit cards. Immediately this shows up in the deep web or in the dark web, and each credit card is about $30. And it depends on how much complete information do you have, so you can make real money. So the criminals that used to come into a bank with a gun and ask you for the money, they don't have to do that anymore. They go and compromise the digital records, not only by stealing customer information, or what happened in most recently with the SWIFT system, you know, in Bangladesh, they basically took over through social engineering, and they stole a lot of records and money. And if it wouldn't be for someone making a mistake, instead of putting a specific letter before the other, that triggered a lot of alarms. So you're seeing that, you know, cyber crime is organized and is well funded. And what we're seeing, the scary part is the state sponsor attacks. And you see a lot of different countries that use either to steal intellectual property, they're well known. Others, they use that as a way to neutralize before they invade a country, or others to just create instability, like you saw what happened with Sony Pictures when, you know, a head of state was being compromised, and they basically not only took over all the data, they made it public, and they created a lot of problems for Sony. So it's actually, and it's a state sponsor, where a company doesn't have enough money or resources to compete against a cyber team or cyber army that is attacking you. So there's a lot of implications about the cyber insurance, the liability for directors. So the market itself, I know we talked about it in broad numbers, it's a market that is emerging, it's only going to explode.
The tools which exist today are okay to avoid a breach, or do you think we have many things to invent? And
Unfortunately, they're not, because as we see, the problem is growing more than the cybersecurity problem is just growing. So we need to create new tools and new capacities. This is this race, the dog and the cat, but at some point, it's not enough.
Yeah, the typical joke is if you put a wall that is 10 meters high, the hacker brings a ladder that is 11 meters high so that they go over. So it's because of the technology changing, there's always going to be new attack surfaces, and there's going to be a lot of space for innovation. And you know, we're looking at how do you automate auditing. You know, just these 3 days in Spain, I've seen like 5 different companies that, you know, because of the success that we achieved with Julio, they come to us and they're saying, look, we have something very unique, and we believe there's part of the industry that's being automated, and part of it is the new abilities to create things like the deep web and dark web. And some of the most important things is how you investigate the investigation platform, that part of what 4IQ does, in order to not only say you have lost this data, but I have an investigation platform by saying who stole it and what you need to do in order to cover. So it's just very interesting dynamics in the market right now.
Great. If we come back to you, Julio, you are a serial entrepreneur. I think your 4IQ is your fourth startup.
Yeah.
Why don't you stay into all your startup, and
why do it again?
Yeah,
yeah, I guess that's a very different profile. The early stage, which is, in my opinion, is just creativity, absolutely creative, flexibility, speed, and a lot of dirt, fast and dirty. There's a total different mindset than just operational growth. No, so in my opinion, it's an absolutely 2 different roles. I know there's some founders that got to be great CEOs, but that's less than 1% of them. 99% of these founders are not good CEOs, and that is very well studied. And So that's what I like, and that's what I think I do best. I'm a horrible manager. I'm not good for, so I just leave that to the people that can do that.
I need to give a lot of credit to Julio because one of the first conversations we had when we invested in, at least in Alien Bolt, 4IQ was easier. He says, so Julio, do you really want to run? He says, look, we're competing at a global level. I do not have the experience. Let's buy the best team money can buy. And together, we interviewed like 7 different CEOs, and overnight we identified a team that had been acquired by a large company, and we brought in 7 executives into Alien Bolt almost the same week. They changed the complete outlook of the company. We had the CEO, the CTO, the VP of Finance, so it was a team ready to execute. And so there's a lot of learning that goes on, and as a serial entrepreneur, you get better all the time, right?
Yeah, and that's not easy to do, what we did.
No, I know, yeah.
It has challenges,
yeah.
But ultimately it worked. It worked great.
Yeah, the biggest issue is the culture. Maybe we can talk about changes.
Oh, yeah, so one of the big, well, there's many challenges, growing pain and growing challenges, and when you're dealing with Spanish teams, because our model is having engineering is always in Spain, so we believe in the Spanish talents, but we put the front end, the marketing and the sales teams in the US. No? The 4IQ is the same as Alien Bolt. So those are 2 very different cultures and 2 different languages and huge distance and on the kilometers, but also on the timing and on the zone timing. So that is pretty challenging. We are living the same right now in 4IQ. We're having this, I can't believe it. Again, we're having those. So human factor, that is one of the big difficulties when you grow, right?
Yeah.
Maybe, Julio, to conclude your show, maybe you have some advice to deliver to the Spanish entrepreneur who are here?
Well, yeah, so yes, if you think about Alien Bolt, it's not only about technology. It's about technology, but it's not only about technology. So unfortunately, that's not all of it. You have to think a lot about the be very innovative in the go-to-market. How do you attract leads? How do you reduce the cost of sales? How do you do things which are disrupting the way that other guys are doing? Because you're going to have to compete with guys with more money and with bigger markets. So you have to overcome that. But there's huge opportunities, I think, in many ways, like open source, like freemium, to do that. But be very creative and innovative in all that go-to-market and other parts of the business, of a startup.
Yeah, and I would say, as entrepreneurs in Spain, make sure that whatever you write is unique. Don't copy too much. Get your intellectual property to be clean, because one of the things as investors we look for is not just the space, the solution, and the uniqueness of what you do, but we look at the intellectual properties that is very, very important, because that's what creates the value. And then you can put the machine to help you reach the global market. But technology, at the end of the day, drives a lot of that business value. And even IP, when the business model that you have. And don't forget to create an ecosystem to take you to market, because you can never be big enough to reach the global market. You have to create partners around the world to help you get there.
And that's your jobs, guys, to build this ecosystem in Spain. So congratulations.
Thank you. Well, very much.
Thank you.
All right.
Well, thank you. Appreciate
you, guys.
that. We did it exactly.
Done.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much. Our previous speakers, I hope you're enjoying the afternoon. And once again, I love this stage. We have always super interesting people. And our next speaker is also someone incredibly important in our ecosystem, specifically in Europe. So previous to his political stunt, he was co-founder and managing partner of a venture fund. So he knows 1 or 2 things about investing. After that, he got into politics, becoming the Secretary of State to the Prime Minister of Portugal. And currently, he holds the position of EU Commissioner for Research, Science and Innovation since November 2014. So here to talk about how to build innovative ecosystems, please welcome Carlos Moedas.
Yeah. Oh, does it work? Yeah, thank you so much. It's quite late in the afternoon, and I'd like to thank you for being here still to listen to me, to a politician. And I thought that today what I really would like to do was to talk to you about change and the fact that people are so afraid of change. And because of that, we're living in such a moment that I feel the world is so dangerous. And we need your help. Politicians need your help. And I've been in your place, and I know that I probably didn't help as I should. And so my point to other politicians is that the only way that you can deal with change is through innovation. And innovation is a major part of how to deal properly with change, because if not, you're too afraid. And when you look back, you think, but why is the world closing itself? Why do people want to close borders? Why do people want actually to be in their own country with their borders and their people, and they don't want any kind of change? And you look at the world, and it's good when you do the exercise of looking when the world was really open. And one of the parts of history that I really like is the period that comes 50 years before 1914, the period before the First World War. And when you look at that period, you see that the world was open. It was so open that a professor at Harvard called Jeffrey Frieden made a study that actually shows that the world today is not as open as the world was in before 1914. And that shows me something, that what happened, what was the reason for that. And when you look at the world before 1914, you see two things that were quite astonishing. One is that there was kind of a global common currency. It was the gold standard. There was just two countries in the world that didn't have any kind or a different set that was not the gold standard. It was China and Persia at the time. And the second one is that people at the time used to travel without a passport. You know, Jeffrey Frieden tells that when people would go as immigrants and they'll get to Ellis Island in New York, they had no papers. They just had three questions actually to answer. The first was, do you have any kind of contagious disease? The second one is like, are you mentally sane? And the third one, are you an anarchist or not? You know? And then, if you would answer these questions, you could get in. And that was before 1914. And then it came 1914, it came the war, the First World War, and what happened? The real GDP went down by 14%. 14%. And it's very interesting because after the First World War, people thought, but let's open again. Let's do again a world that is open. Because we saw the result. The result of protectionism was that the GDP of the world came down. And so they decided to do this conference in Paris in 1920 that was the Passport Conference in Paris, where the main idea of governments, imagine that, was to abolish passports. It didn't happen. And the Second World War came. More protectionism, more closing borders, more being in your own corner, and the real GDP of the world came down by another 22%. And if you look, it's just after the Second World War, from 1950 to the year 2000, about the year 2000, where you see that the exports as a percentage of GDP goes from 8% in 1950 to 20% in the year 2000. That's creating wealth. That's good for the people. That's what you do. But it's also interesting to look at that period, to look at the future, and think about the digital world. Because I think that the period of openness of the world was so good that it was exactly there in those 50, 60 years before that the idea of the digital world came about. And that's one of the most beautiful stories that I really like, that comes from Walter Isaacson, one of the best biographers of the world. I mean, he wrote a biography of Kissinger, of Steve Jobs, and he tells the story of those 50 years through the lenses of a woman that was actually the daughter of Lord Byron. She was called Ada Lovelace. And Ada Lovelace, it was a very unique person because she was the daughter of a poet and a writer. But the mother, because the mother didn't like the father, they were divorced, the mother said, look, you cannot study any more of poetry or humanities. You should be a mathematician. And so Ada became a great mathematician. She was so good that she became the first computer programmer of the world. She computed what you call in engineering the Bernoulli numbers. But the big lesson is that the person that she was working with, Charles Babbage, a great mathematician, he just thought that as a computer program for numbers. And at some point, Ada looks at him and says, and I'll quote, you know, Charles, the engine might compose one day elaborated and scientific pieces of music of any degree of complexity. So in the 1800s, this woman in an open world was defining the digital economy. She was basically having this great idea. And I think what Walter Isaacson doesn't probably tell us is that she was defining what I think is the characteristic that defines a big innovator in the digital age to the one that is not a great innovator. Is that she was telling us that to be a great innovator in the digital world, you need to be at the intersections of disciplines. And she was that. She was at the intersection in between arts and sciences. And that, for me, is the main driver for all of you sitting here today. And that's my job as a European Commissioner. What can I do for that? And so I thought to myself that there's just two things I can do. Two things that I think are crucial for Europe. One is basically about how do you build self-confidence. Because self-confidence is the only way that people can be at the intersections. If you're not self-confident, you'll stay at the core of your discipline. You just work on the core of what you know because you're too afraid to be in the intersections. And so the point is that how can you do that? And a professor at mine at Harvard used to say that self-confidence is a sweet point in between ignorance and arrogance. You know, it's like you have to find the right spot. If you have too much, you're an arrogant, and that's bad. If you don't have enough, you're an ignorant, which is also not good. And for that, you have to give the right conditions to innovators. You don't have to tell innovators what to do. They have to tell you what they want to do. You have to be able to listen to them. And that's probably the easiest part, because I think self-confidence somehow is a little bit like in sports. You just do it and do it and do it and do it, and you train and you train and you talk, and at some point you talk nicely. And that's about that. You can train that. But there's one thing you cannot train, and that's one thing that Europe has a lot, which is diversity. Today, you know that to get into digital innovation, you need diversity. And we did studies, scientific studies, that show that scientists that work in diverse environments produce 20% more than others. We know that boards of directors that are diverse, with people that think in a different way, different religions, different parts of the world, work better. And so the point is that today, without that diversity and conflict, you don't have innovation. So you have to create the right tools to have in your company, in your startup, ways of doing what we call creative abrasion. How do you put ideas together really in conflict, but not in a chaos? And that's, for me, the big thing about the entrepreneur of the future, because he's someone that understands that the way to innovate is not about consensus, it's not about politics. I mean, politicians, we do a lot of consensus. It's not about innovation. Innovation is about that conflict. And so how can you help those that are actually the future on creating those types of environment? And so my job at the end of the day, it's not more than that. It's to lower barriers in terms of regulation that impairs you to do things. It's actually to get the right amount of money at the right place, and people like you find it useful. But I think that the message that I wanted really to leave you here, and I know that I'm going over time, is that be confident in Europe, because Europe is the only place in the world that you find this kind of diversity that actually can get you to the next level. And our job is actually to lower the barriers in between the countries for that to work. Isn't it easy? Should be very easy. Unfortunately, it's not. But that's a big part of my job. But I leave you just with a quote from Walter Isaacson that I love about everything we talked here today. When he finishes his book, The Innovators, he says, "This innovation will come from people who are able to link beauty to engineering, humanity to technology, and poetry to processors. It will come from creators who can flourish, where the arts intersect with sciences, and who have a rebellious sense of wonder that opens them to the beauty of both." Thank you very much. Now, I don't know what to do, but I went for the... Not there.
Well, shake it up, baby. Twist and shout. Come on, come on, come on, come on, baby. Now, come on and walk it on out. Walk it on out.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much, Carlos. You can stay if you want. Sure? Let's take some questions.
Finally,
well, we can get some questions if you want.
If you have questions. If not,
anyone has any questions?
Have a drink
for Carlos. We have one here. No? Sure? Any questions over there? There we go.
Hello.
You stay with me.
I'll stay with you, don't worry.
It's great to hear that you put such emphasis on diversity. So I would be very interested to learn a little bit more on what are the specific tools or initiatives that you currently have in place to foster more diversity, mainly talking about innovation and startups. Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Look, what we do, I think, is that first you have to push. And so one of the things we do in terms of gender balance is that we always have a rule that we need at least 40% to 50% of women in our advisory boards in Europe. And that is a rule that I think is extremely important because it actually pushes something that is not natural, that doesn't happen in most of the countries. And it's very interesting when we have meetings that we have a lot of people coming from all these countries. There's something that in diversity is crucial, is that those groups where you see diversity of gender and different countries, they normally take a little bit more time to work. So you have to give them more time. And it's kind of binary. So sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't, but you have to have the time to let the group get it on with business and have the patience. And so I think that one of the things is sometimes people don't want diversity because they don't have the patience to wait. But then when it works, you see wonders. You see how beautiful it is to have people with so different ideas and creating something common. So it's a little bit, you have to be in between creating the rules, but at the same time pushing people to be together, even if when they don't want to be together, because they think differently. It's much more comfortable for us to have people that think like us. So these are the kind of very simple things that we do in Europe.
Now a question? Somebody at the back? We have another one over there.
Hello. Okay, it works. I just have a question. You were saying that there are quite a lot of barriers within Europe for people to come together and form startups. And you stressed a lot in your speech diversity. And I was wondering, do you think the major problem is to do with the fact that there are certain European countries that are taking like more of a strongman position? So there's more of a hierarchy within Europe. Instead of it being intergovernmental, it seems like there's one country that's sort of leading in this supranational structure. So my question is, how do we overcome that? And as you were saying, it's your job to encourage diversity and integration. So how do we get to that before we can truly become a place for startups? Thank you.
You know, I think that your point, and politically, of course, there's the big countries and the small countries. But in terms of science, I don't see that much in science and innovation, because what you see is that divide does not exist geographically anymore. When you go to the best of the best companies or the best universities in Europe, you see people from around the world. And when I go, for instance, to a British university, I mean, we could talk a little bit about Brexit. You go to a British university where most of the people, I was just at the Imperial College 2 weeks ago, and 1,000 of the teachers and the staff are actually non-British. They are European citizens from other parts. So I think that it's true that that divide north, south, east, west is one of the reasons that sometimes you feel in Europe that you can't get things done. But it's because it takes time. You know, when you look at it, I mean, it's these 70 years of peace and prosperity that we had is because of the European project. Before that was the war. So it's not that before that was a great time. And so it takes a long time. You know, I mean, I think that when you look at the Anglo-Saxon system, you have a system where you are kind of bottom up. So you have a problem, you work the problem, you go up the ladder, and at some point the political system announces the solution. In the European project, it's the other way around. It's kind of top down. You come at really, you get people around, you get consensus, you get 28 around the table to actually get finally to a solution, and then you tell to the people. And so it creates confusion. And so I think that it's really about us Europeans to one think, what's the alternative, which I think is awful, and what's the price that you have to pay because you have a supranational entity, but you don't have a government of Europe. You have a system that makes everybody work together. And I think that the price of actually sometimes you get all these layers of decision making, it's a kind of a small price for what you get out of there. And I don't think that your generation will ever accept that you'll have to show passports again, that you'll have to go through borders, that I mean, that is not even in your dreams. I mean, you cannot imagine a Europe that is different from the one that we have now. And that gives me a lot of hope, because I see a lot of people from the older generation, they think that the world before was better. And for you, I think that you're not as involved in politics because you think that it's irreversible. My message to you is that, look, I really hope it's not irreversible, but I need your help. I need that people like you tell me, look, I have a startup. I want the startup to be all over Europe. I don't want to have a startup that I have to build 28 different startups. I want less barriers. I want more Europe, because if not, I cannot do my business. But you're so far apart from the political reality because you're doing your own life, you're doing your own businesses, that you don't get involved. And I think it's time for the community of innovators and startuppers to get a little bit more involved, because at some time or at some point, you will pay the price.
I think
you will pay the price.
I think that's a fantastic closing remark, because as a startup person myself, I think we need to get more involved and help you guys make a better future for everyone. So that's our last question. Please, thank you very much, guys. Thank you very much, Carlos. Big pleasure having you on stage. And Some of you have seen it before, probably, but this is a very special talk, the one we have now, because we're going to have, how do I put this? We have a human speaker, and then we're going to have a non-human speaker. So someone that comes all the way from France with a very interesting background as a sculptor and a designer for many big brands for many, many years. He founded in 2012 a company that's called InMove, which was the first, they created, among many other things, they have created the first 3D printed life-size robot that has existed in a crowdsourced way in the world. So without further ado, I want you to meet the robot and his founder and creator, Gaël Langevin. Please, big applause.
Good here. All right. Yeah, it's good. Hello, everybody. I'm very glad to be over here in Madrid. Thank you. Very glad to be over here in Madrid. And I want to thank the South Summit team for inviting me over here for the first time. So, I'm here to present the project InMove, which is a robot, open source, and completely 3D printed. So, it's open source. And what does that mean? It means everybody can download the parts and reproduce them on their home printer. So you can make this robot. For example, in Italy and in Russia, there's a group of students that have set up a process to teach deaf children how to learn the sign languages using this hand. So they 3D print the hand, and then the children can learn how to do the sign language. In Sacramento and in London, there's 2 schools of students that are 3D printing this robot to put it in hospitals for children that are in rooms that are sterilized, so they can remote control the robot outside the room using a remote control and an Oculus Rift. So it's pretty cool, actually. I do a cool job. I'm a sculptor designer, and I create objects for my clients on demand. So what it means is you come up to me, you want an object that doesn't exist in the shop, and you tell me, I want this kind of thing, I design it and make it for you. So one day there's one client that came up, and he said, for a commercial, he said, I want to make a prosthetic hand that looks totally futuristic, something that we've never seen before. We were in 2011, and I just had bought you know, those 3D printers, little home 3D printers. So I thought, maybe I could 3D print that hand. I made the price. I was too expensive. The job didn't happen. But actually what it did, it sparkled my imagination. How do I make it that it looks totally futuristic? So I went on the internet, I looked, is there some 3D printed prosthetics? In 2011, there was no hands 3D printed. So I modelized the hand, printed it, added some motors, programmed it, and then it could move. Wow, that was really amazing. So I decided to share the files on the internet. I had been for a long time using Linux as open source. I had been using Blender to modelize things in 3D. So I shared all the files on the website that is called Thingiverse. So this is the hand once I had built it up and with my little printer. And this was the first hand, which is actually pretty much the same than this one. Then, because I uploaded the things on the internet, it went really crazy. Within a month and a half, there was more than 70,000 downloads. So I thought, wow, this is amazing. Let's go on building. So I decided to keep doing the process, making the bicep, then the shoulder, So you can see here the shoulder and the bicep. And then I just kept going, making the rest of the robot. You can see the eye mechanism. Everything is printed inside. So every time I was doing a part, modeling, I would share it on the internet. So a bunch of people were following the project, and they had their own printer, and they would reproduce those parts. So I was creating slowly a community. So how did it happen? Well, actually, building a website so everybody could download the parts, because today, anybody here in this room can reproduce this robot in his home, schools, universities, for less than 1,500 euros, this complete robot. So this robot has been built up in 68 countries, more than 70 universities, but not only, it's in fab labs, maker spaces, homes, schools. There's even parents with their children printing the robot in their living room. So it's totally amazing. We've got more than 400 copies of this robot throughout the world. So I'm going to show you now some examples. For example, this on the bottom right, he's making the hand move with the EEG sensor on the head. It has been used for countless projects in 3D printings. You must have heard of it in the medias. I have a little bit of a hard time to make these. You see, with the brain, he's making it move. It has been used by Nicolas Huchet, which is a French man. He used it as a prosthetic. It has been used for many projects as prosthetics, but not only. So in different countries, Poland, Russia, Georgia, there's some tests for people that have lost their limbs, so they can try the hand to see if they memorize the muscles. This is in Russia, in America, Italy, Holland. In every country, everybody's building it, different colors, different shapes, and that makes the project very interesting. See, some more colors. I like the green one, actually. It looks a little bit like a greenish stuff. And then they are working also on wheel systems, so the robot can drive around. This one you can see has legs. It's not functional. So the top part is functional, and the legs are just for standing. I have another one. This is the number 2. I have another one that is on wheels that can drive around. So you can see, for example, on the bottom left, it has a whole system to drive around. It can move by itself through the doors. It can grab some objects. The top one that looks a little bit goldish is also driving by itself. You can see in the middle when you are teaching the robot. So the robot has a Kinect over here. And when you make some movements, the robot reproduces your movements, and you can tell him to remember those gestures. Yeah, it's not an autopilot in the car. It's people that are driving the robot to some place. And I think those pictures are pretty funny. It's interesting to see how the robot can sit in the car, just like we do. So other projects. On the top left, it's KAIST in North Korea. That is trying to fly the plane with the robot. Personally, I don't want to be in that kind of planes. Let's wait a little bit that it works better. On the left bottom, the hand is doing rock, paper, scissors, so you can make some gestures, play with the hand itself. I'm going to try to make it move to see if it works. Yeah, you see, there's a sensor, infrared sensor, and when you move the hand over the infrared sensor, the hand can reproduce the gestures you are doing. And it can shake people's hand. This one can, actually. You can rock, paper, scissors. All right. So, how did InMove help so many projects? This is very important. By setting up a website where all the files are well stated, so you can download all the files for free, because it's open source. Then there is explanations with tutorials that are done with pictures, that are also done with sketches like this. Making a community is very important, so people can collaborate, discuss between each other, and make the project evolve. And this is how I discovered a software that is called My Robot Lab. My Robot Lab is a framework Java software that controls the whole robot. So it is created and developed by developers throughout the world. Let's see if there's something. Yeah. So this software has 2 cameras in the eyes. It's using also a Kinect over here to see in 3 dimensions. You can do some slam motion. That means you can drive through doors and things like this. There's servos everywhere in the robot, a PIR sensor that helps to detect motions. Then there's voice recognition, so you can speak with the robot can speak back. Sometimes he's telling some jokes. We'll see if it works at some point. There's artificial intelligence inside, which everybody's working on. It's doing kinematic ability. That means you present an object, and it tries to grab the objects in space. This is something we are working on. It's not yet ready. It's doing some cloud sharing. That means if I teach him something, let's say I show him a red ball, I tell him it's a red ball, he's going to see it in 3 dimensions. He's going to be able to share it on the internet, so the other clones are going to be able to recognize the red ball and say, it's a red ball. Sometimes it works. It doesn't work so well yet, but it's something that we are working on. And then, of course, some deep learning services within My Robot Lab, which means that the robot has algorithms to learn. OK, let's see now. Let's see. Everybody's waiting, right? Relax. Relax. Oh, this is scary, isn't it? A robot that doesn't work. Rest.
Did you say, look at this?
No.
Sorry.
Rest.
Did you say, rest?
Yes.
Okay.
Movement number 4.
Did you say movement number 4?
Yes.
Okay.
So you're going to be able to see that all the fingers can move. There's tendons that actuate each fingers. He has sensors in the fingers. The cameras in the eyes allow him to see what he's doing, and he can fall in the back if I don't hold him. You can see the gestures. It's very important as a sculptor to create gestures that are more human-like, not just moving like a robot. It's very important that it makes gestures that are almost like a dance, and this creates the ability for humans to have empathy for the robot. Thank you. Thank you.
You are welcome.
I love you.
I love you too.
Hey, that works. Are you okay?
I am very super mega bored.
Sorry.
No problems.
Delicate grab.
Did you say delicate grab?
Yes.
Okay.
Close your left hand.
Did you say approach the left hand?
No.
Sorry.
Close your left hand.
Did you say close your left hand?
Yes.
Okay.
Put it down. Put it down.
Did you say? Put it down.
Yes.
Okay.
Drop it.
Did you say? Drop it.
Yes.
Okay.
Thank you. Hey.
Did you say?
That's a nice thing. Relax.
Did you say? Relax.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay, you can see he's going slow. He's not very fast. This is a version that costs about 1,500 euros. That's what I explained. So the motors inside are very small. We can use RC cars with those motors. But mainly, why did I do projects like this? Why did I share it on the internet? Well, I think it's very important today to be disruptive. And I think we are talking everywhere about disruptivity in companies and so on. And I think we shouldn't be only disruptives in companies. We should be disruptive in the world. Throughout everything, change the things, see the things different. By open sourcing, you will have people coming to your company, helping to build up the process of developing some products, and it's going to change the things. And why robots? Well, why robots? There's a lot of people that I think are saying, robots, do we really need some and all of that? Should we go on with robotic? Actually, the robots are everywhere already. Even in my home, I have a washing machine. It's already some kind of a robot. There's a very simple program. I can put it on. It's doing the washing. And then when it's ready, it stops, turns off the electricity, and so on. So we have robots everywhere. But why human robots? Well, it's important to have human robots. Because the other day, my washing machine was broken, and I tried to talk with it. It didn't work really well. And then afterwards, I wanted to send it to do some groceries for me, and it absolutely didn't move from where it was. It didn't even respond or anything like this. When you have a robot, humanoid, you can tell him, go and do the groceries. He can go in the shop. He can take the things in the shelves, the same as you do. It can sit in a car, just like you do. It can go down the steps, just like we do sometimes, and we can fall. So I think it's very important to build robots that are humanoids. And why doing this at all? Because it's true that having some robots and artificial intelligence in the future can be something very scary. We actually don't know what we are playing with. That is why I think it has to be disruptive. That is why I think open source has to change the things. Because an artificial intelligence that is going to be built up by every one of you, is going to make a big difference. Do I want tomorrow to have a robot like this in my home that has been built up by a company with things inside? I don't even know what's going on inside. There's cameras, it can look at me, it can do things in the house. No, I don't want this. I want a robot that if I want to see what's inside the robot, I should be able to. So, open source has to change and will change the things. And open source is very secure. There's a lot of systems today that are using more open sourcing than companies' products, because everybody's working on the programs, everybody develops the things that are inside. So that's why I'm making a robot, and that's why I want this robot to be built in schools so everybody can use it and create what we're going to have tomorrow. Thank you very much.
Hey.
So he's not going back by himself yet, huh? That's not scary. That's
Are you sure?
better.
Robot, get back?
Get back.
No? Not working? Well, thank you very much.
Thank you
Big
very much.
pleasure, Gael. Another round of applause to Gael and the robot. Thank you very much. And it's an authentic pleasure to introduce our next speakers. Most of them are very good friends. We've been working together for many years. And the moderator of the panel, she's actually part of the family. She was the co-founder of Spain Startup, co-founder of this conference, until she got, I don't know why, a better job at Google. And she's now the head of Google Campus Madrid. So please give a warm applause to talk about great companies that can be born anywhere. Sofia Benjumea. Come on, there you go. So she recently had a baby, so you can give her gifts after she goes off stage. You know, you're still receiving gifts, aren't you?
Yeah, anything.
So please welcome her two invited speakers, Juan Urdiales, co-founder and co-CEO of Job and Talent. Please, big applause. And Jan de Vries, partner at Atomico Ventures. Thank you very much, guys. Stage is yours.
Thank you, Alex. What an entrance. So thank you, everyone, for being here. And it's an honor to moderate this panel, especially with, it's not especially, it's just that, I mean, we've known for a long time, but especially with Juan. Juan is the founder of Job and Talent, and actually they were the winners of the second edition of South Summit, when it wasn't even called South Summit, it was Spain Startup, back in 2013, so long has happened since. And Jan de Vries, who works for Atomico, the fund that just invested in Job and Talent, and together you're going to bring it to the next level, and that's at least what I hope. But as we were saying, Job and Talent announced before the summer their Series B round of $42 million, not bad. And now we're talking. Before talking about that, let's start back in 2009, when together with Felipe, you decided to launch Job and Talent. What were your dreams at that point? I mean, what were you founding? How far did you want to go? And what has changed?
I think that the reason why we started the company is still the same reason as we continue with the company right now. Just to put things in context, we started the company back in 2009, and it was one of the worst years for Spain as a country. The unemployment rate grew at that time from 10% to 24% in a couple of months. It was a horrible year. And when we're looking into the labor market, we're seeing that it was completely inefficient, and there was a complete lack of transparency, of matching between the employer and the potential candidate. And we're seeing a lot of things that can be improved by technology. That was our thought at that time, and we still have the same view on that, you know. At the time, we thought that the problem was only a problem happening in Spain, but we have realized, we realized actually in the next years that it was a global problem. You know, it's like, actually it's a problem that is affecting to any single country in the world. If you go to the US or to any country in Asia, this is a fact, and the labor market is inefficient. There's a complete lack of transparency. There is not trust generated between the candidate and the employer, and then finally there is a reality, and it's very hard on every single country to fire people. There is a lot of bureaucracy, a lot of paperwork that has to be done, and we had since the early beginning the idea of changing this and improving this, and by that changing completely the market.
So from the early beginning, you had, even if you started small, you started from Spain, you had that global ambition. And so I think this is one thing that probably brought Atomico in, because as you say, Atomico, one of the key things for you guys when you decide to back a company is the founders. What did you see in Juan and Felipe as they're one of the few startups that have two co-CEOs? No? So what did you see in the founders of Job and Talent at that point?
I'm going to say good things, so I'm going to probably embarrass you. No, we met Juan almost a year ago now, and I was really impressed with, one, they had a very clear vision of the market and where they wanted to go. This is really important because you can get distracted by so many things. They just had a very clear view of what they had to build, who they had to recruit, what was the business model, and where they were going to go. And that's the first thing. I think they had really global ambitions. I think this is a business that is very disruptive globally, equally in Madrid or New York or in emerging markets like Jakarta or Sao Paulo. And that is important because I think that's really unleashes global potential. I think they had, experienced a lot of, they had deep expertise in the space. They had, flipped, they had pivoted. They really knew what mattered, and they had pain points along the way, so they had learned a lot. That is important as well. And they had this sheer perseverance that they wanted to build something for the long term. And it's incredibly difficult to build a company. There's going to be, it's a continuous roller coaster, and only the people that have that deep inside them are going to be able to go through these close to, life and death moments where, maybe we're going to talk about that, but, where the company can literally, the next week, close, right? Yeah. And you need to be able to have that incredible drive to push that through, never give up on this mission, and then have the ability to hire really good people. So that's what we saw as well in them, where they were surrounding themselves with really good leaders. The level below them, the founders, has to be a strong bench. There's no company that can be built, especially globally, with just 2 or 3 exceptional founders. You need the ability to hire incredible people below you, and then that ripples through the whole organization.
Actually, you were talking about that, and I wanted to follow up on Juan and say, since the beginning, can you actually name us 2 moments? One that almost killed you, and one that has made you who you are at this point?
I think I always like to mention to show how similar this is to, being an entrepreneur to being a roller coaster. It's like there is a moment actually back in 2013, I think it was at the time where we made the decision of raising a round and went to see many investors. And at the time, there were like 3 companies in the world that had the same thesis as us. We truly believe that by the clever use of the technology and matching systems, we can really make the employment market much more liquid. And there was another company in Silicon Valley saying the same. It was Bright.com. It was ourselves here in Europe. It was Bright, and then another one that was a bit smaller. So went to really speak with a lot of investors, and then suddenly one of our big theses was that some of the major players like LinkedIn or some others will need those companies to expand ourselves and to make their marketplaces more liquid. And then suddenly LinkedIn bought Bright. So we thought that everything was over. All the investors a lot of investors didn't, reply to us, and we thought, okay, the only chance that it was in the end selling the company to a big player like LinkedIn, has just happened. And then suddenly something happened. It was the other way around. Although there were some investors thinking, okay, those guys are done, there were some other investors that they were thinking in big, that they were saying, okay, that means that those guys were right. So if LinkedIn is buying a company that is developing a matching engine, those guys were right, because the major player on the industry and probably the top end of the pyramid is buying a company like that. Those guys are doing something well. So from one day to the other, we were at that time looking for 2.5 or 3 million. We suddenly received a term sheet for 10 million, and there was like an oversubscription of 6 or 7 additional million of different VCs that they wanted to back us. So
the FOMO, no? The fear of missing out suddenly came in.
So we were like, from even going to bankruptcy because we didn't have anyone backing us, to really get a much more cash that what we even imagined in the beginning. So.
Great moment that actually made both, no? Almost killed you, but actually made your success. We had the chance to have actually your founder, Niklas Enström, this morning. I don't know how many of you had the chance to listen. And he was talking about how great companies, as the panel that brings us here, are everywhere. We don't care about where they come from, but where they are going, no? So how are you actually helping? I mean, he was also talking about how the challenge that we have in Europe is the growth. Like, we have immense talent in our entrepreneurs, but we don't have the talent of people that can scale these companies. I think this is mainly one of your value propositions. Like, what is Atomico's value proposition for a company, for Juan? What are you bringing in to make them succeed?
I mean, probably Juan should be the one talking about this because he's the one experiencing it, but at high level, what we try to do is we bring in founders that sort of have been there, We have on the team 6 founders of billion-dollar companies. So they have the experience, and they want to be mentors to the next generation. And so they can share a lot of the best practices, the mistakes that they've made, and make sure that the new generation avoids them. That's one thing. And that is a whole mentality, right? We want to be an extension of the founders team. We don't want to be, we're not here to take control by any means. We want to be working for them to help them, right? And we bring in some world-class people as well that have deep operational experience in some key functions that are not necessarily natural for founders who tend to be technology people or product people that maybe never had a chance to work in China and would have no idea of what it is to enter a daunting market like China. So we have people in Japan, in China, in Brazil, in the US, whose only job is to help those companies enter these new markets. So they have a lot of connections, they know what works, they know the channel partners to engage with, they know how to set up your legal entity. They do a lot of things to reduce the risks and help you accelerate. Instead of taking a year, they probably can do it in 3 months, right? So that's one big thing. And then we have functional expertise. So we have people that are focused to try and help some of the biggest pain points in companies. So talent recruiting, growing your organization, especially if you want to go global, is very difficult. So we have somebody who did this for Google, actually. You're at Google as well. He started there when there were 100 people in Europe, and he grew it to 6,000 people. So he knows the best tech people in Europe. He helps put these right people in the company, and he helps think about all the trade-offs that you have to make as you grow from one country to another to global.
Yeah,
and how is, yeah, exactly, yes, how is applying to?
Yes, in here it's like, there's like probably 4 guys that has been extremely helpful in just the few months that you have been in the company. One of them is Neil Was. He was the former head of expansion of Uber. He launched Uber in more than 50 countries and multiple cities across all those countries. He's a total expert on marketplaces, and we are in the end a marketplace of talent and small businesses, and has been extremely helpful to help us to measure, to optimize, and to learn about such a great experience. Then we have also, and in this case, Neil, for example, spent like 2 or 3 hours a week with us, and then plus 2 or 3 days a month in the office. He actually knows the whole of the operational team, and it's like having someone working part-time for you in this case. Then we have some other guys like Ben Grold, who was one of the head of growth of Google, and then he was head of growth of Facebook and Instagram. He's spending a lot of time with our product team, trying to create a world-class leading product. And then we have guys like Dan, who is helping a lot with recruitment and especially with retention, and in order to reinforce our company culture, which is crucial. And then we have, of course, Jan, who is extremely involved in more from the strategical part. He's got a lot of experience with a lot of startups that he has advised and you have also managed. And then, of course, you have other people like Siraj, who was one of the first employees on Facebook, an amazing engineer who, if there is any question, you can get your engineers to speak with him and chat during 1 hour, 2 hours, and it's extremely helpful. Then you have Niklas, who he spent much more time than what people think in all of the startups, and then he's very close to all of the founders. He helps a lot to actually help you believe in that you can really achieve that big mission. So in general, it's a great team to work with.
That's amazing. Sounds amazing. So how do you, I guess some of the entrepreneurs and founders that are pretty jealous at this point. Like, how did you grab Atomico's attention? How did you, or did they come to you? How did the flirting start?
There's a story. It's like we met Atomico and we were like a 7-people team, back in 2012 or 2011. It's like 2 years after starting, and we get some good interactions with them at the beginning. But we were based in Spain, and at the time they were not looking for to invest in smaller companies outside of the UK. And then it was I think that by Javier Torremocha of Kibo, that Jan came to Madrid to meet him, and then Javier was suggesting him to meet us. And I think we were in the right moment at the right time, because everyone knows that there's something big coming into the labor market. Something is going to happen in here. Things are going to change. And we were at that time probably the best positioned as a company to get them on board, and to be that company that they wanted to invest. So I think it was a combination of being at the right time and and a bit of luck.
And what we did is we have two ways we meet companies. One, we obviously opportunistically, like introductions like that and referrals. That's a very important way. So if you're a founder, try and have people that we know introduce you. It's gonna make it so much easier. Unfortunately, we receive hundreds of solicitations a week, and it's very hard for managers. So an introduction from one of the VCs or another founder is going to make a huge difference. The second thing we do is we sometimes, not always, but we have thesis-based investing. So actually recruiting and this whole space was an area where we knew there was going to be a big disruption.
It's like, which are the markets that are going to be disrupted? Who's
Correct.
doing what?
And that was a clear one where we saw the coming of the mobile, where now suddenly 1 billion people, blue-collar workers, have a mobile, and all this recruiting market is offline. It made no sense. So we knew with the right technology, the right business model, the right platform, they would be able to disrupt this space. So we basically talked with our team in the US, in Asia, in Latin America, and in Europe, and we screened the whole space. We talked to maybe 30 companies around the world and tried to find out what was the right model, what was the right team, what was the right technology, and then we quickly honed in actually on them, and they were in the top 5 list. And I think we got lucky. We kind of met during that phase, and that's when things started.
Okay. You talked about like Kibo introducing you. I mean, until your Series B, all the funds, all the runs that you raised were by national capital, local VCs or business angel family offices. How was the fact of, did you not decide to go for international funds, or was it just tough to get them? And on your side, how key for you in order to invest was for them to have a first national VC funding? How is that key for?
We can invest at any stage of a company, so we can do seed investments. Our focus is Series A and Series B. We can also do later stage investments. So it doesn't matter, I think, if you don't have a local, what matters most is that you have really a strong vision and you're an exceptional founder. And then if you come introduced by somebody that we respect, then the chances go up dramatically. That's how I would put it. So I would surely not rule out people here in this room that don't have a local VC. We don't want to compete with the local VCs. We're actually very happy that they're here because they play a very important role in helping these companies get to this typical point where we like to come in, which is once they've validated the product market fit, they're then ready to scale. And that's where the local funds are really good at that. And then, so we're complementary. Once the company is ready to take off and go global, that's when we come in and help them scale.
Yes, and in our side, in the past, I think that when we were at more seed and early stage, it was not so common to attract VCs. I think that the ecosystem has changed a lot, and a lot of international VCs had finally realized how good entrepreneurial spirit is in Spain, and how many good engineers we have in this country, and how ambitious the new startups are. But at that time, there was not so much interest. So we always had a good relation with some of them. But then it was easier for us to raise the money from the local VCs. And then once we hit certain stage, we noticed that we need someone that could bring us to the next phase as a company and to the next stage. So at that time, we realized that we needed an international fund, and we were looking actually to attract Atomico. Actually, we met a lot of them, and finally we were lucky because we managed to bring them on board. That it was our first priority.
Awesome. And so talking again, you started in Spain, and we're here to talk about, hey, it's possible to become one of the next big thing coming from Spain. And how has the fact of starting here and being in Spain made you what it is today? And same, what do you see in Spanish entrepreneurs that can give us the optimism to say, hey, we can do it. It can come from here. How has this impacted you, and how, as an investor, do you see the ecosystem here in Spain?
I think that there is a reality, and there is less money or less VC money than in the rest of the countries. So I think that starting a business in here in an ecosystem where you just had to pitch a lot of people to get small money made you probably more efficient. But then somehow it also affects you to your ambition. So it's tougher to be as ambitious as a Silicon Valley entrepreneur in here in Spain, because the reality is that it's tougher to build up a company with less money and to create a global category winner without the money. So it plays in your favor in the fact that you are more efficient, that it's going to be making you much more efficient, but on the other hand, it plays against you because it can somehow affect your ambition. So the good thing is that we're starting to have in Europe some leading funds, like in here Atomic, also Index and Excel, and some others that start to have like the same funds as the American VCs and are starting to bet as strong as the American VCs. And we also have some American VCs finally coming to Europe to place big bets in European companies. So I think that's going to completely change the ambition on the current ecosystem, I think.
I remember, off the record, this is not very political, but one Spanish entrepreneur saying, I ate so much shit that it ended up being fertilizer. Like, it's so much tougher to start here that it makes us stronger, no? Yeah. As we say. So what's your experience on the investor side on what have you seen? I mean, Atomico invested 10 years ago in Fun, now Job and Talent. 10 years have passed. How, from your experience of what you've seen in the last 2-3 years, have you seen the evolution of the ecosystem?
I mean, look at this event, for example. I bet you 10 years ago I was not there, but there was probably 30 people, and now we have several thousands of people.
It was not here.
It was not even here. And so I think the ecosystem has matured a lot. Clearly, it's still nascent and fragile. I think, which on one way, it's true, it brings a lot of challenges, but I see yesterday I was at a lunch with a lot of the top entrepreneurs, and they're all helping each other, which is a really nice thing to see. They know they need each other. They don't poach employees from each other to some extent. There's a lot of camaraderie, and there is a lot of mentorship going on, and I think that's a very positive thing. Mm-hmm. I think the fact that it's harder makes the ones that succeed really the smartest one. There's this natural attrition happening where those that make it are really savvy, perseverant, visionary entrepreneurs, and those are the ones that actually, if they make it through these early stages in Spain, probably have a pretty good shot at becoming, something inspiring globally. And that's what we see, that's what we saw in them. I spent 4 years in Brazil, it was very similar, right? Mm-hmm. It's so complex to do business there. The ones that are able to survive really have what it takes to succeed afterwards.
What would you be that are the key challenges you're facing now, like in the next year or two?
I think that it's like moving fast and growing in different markets. We have a city-by-city model, and we have a quite ambitious growth plan for the next years. So it's going to be a challenge. Of course, the most relevant thing is the people that we have to hire to make this happen. So it's going to be a recruitment challenge and then a massive execution challenge at this point.
Okay. So just as we've got probably a room full of founders that they might approach you now that, you've been under the spotlight now. Could you tell us something about you, just to facilitate the approach in case just someone bumps into you over the something that, I don't know, any funny anecdote about something reaching out to you that say, I'm going to listen to this guy. I mean, he deserves it. I don't know.
Nothing comes to mind, but just be yourself. I think, don't be afraid. I think it's all about talking to people. Find a friend that knows us and approach. The worst thing that can happen to you is a no, and that's, we really are here to meet as many of you as possible, and I would just encourage you to think big like Juan is. I think I've never seen so many opportunities today for young entrepreneurs. I think the technologies that are available for you to scale are at your fingertips. The money is there. I think it's really ideas and being bold. And I think if you do that and you stick to it, I think you're all going to be very successful.
I think Juan has something.
No, it's like, I think that in this case, Jan really enjoys a lot having conversations with Spanish and Latin entrepreneurs. That's why he was living actually in Brazil and he's quite an approachable person. And I was going to be telling everyone in what hotel he's staying. So he can... No, I'm kidding.
You can follow him.
Yeah.
So, okay, we just have 1 more minute. I have just 2 sentences for each of you that I would like to finish. If you started a company, Juan, now, a new one, what would you focus on?
Well, I will focus, of course, on the most important thing, as I'm doing right now, is the team. And then I will focus on the first stage to bring on board the right, in this case, investor. If it's local, it's fine. And then I will try to, as soon as possible, to bring on board an international investor, because I think that it opens your eyes and it gives you a much broader approach and helps you to expand your business not only locally but all across the multiple regions. And I will try to since the early beginning, create a product and a mentality into the company that, for scale the business across multiple geographies. So I will try to build up a lean structure and a playbook to scale fast as you can.
Okay, I hope you noted. I asked him for one thing, and he gives this list of. And what would be, Jan, one thing that an entrepreneur needs to master?
I think probably the most important thing is to surround yourself with the best people and be an inspiring leader to attract the best people, and don't be afraid to hire people smarter than you. I think that's the name of the game. So that's probably the most critical thing that one should do. And it's a long journey. I think don't do it for the wrong reasons. The press makes it look sexy. You always talk about those that made it, but then there is thousands of those that didn't.
Stay on the way.
So I think do it because you're passionate about something and you are there for the long run. It's not about the quick flip. Don't believe that you're going to make money fast. It's never the case. It's always the exception. So focus on a problem that you're deeply passionate about and willing to give up everything for the next 10 years to do it with the best people.
Thank you very much, and we wish you the best of luck. Thank you so much.
Thanks for having us here.
Thank you very much, guys. I hope you're enjoying. We're about to have the last talk of the day, one I'm particularly excited to present. He's a very good friend. He was here 2 years ago. I had the great opportunity of introducing him to the audience. Woo! There we go, they cut me. And I have, again, the opportunity to present someone that I think, for anyone in the startup community, is one of the masters. One person that is all over the globe, working with startups, helping startups, and pushing ecosystems all across the world. So we're going to talk about, he's going to give a talk that's called Introducing the Uni-Hedge, which you've probably never heard, which is fantastic, because it took me a while to understand what he was going to talk about. He used to be at PayPal. He's worked at many different companies, started at PayPal, ended up managing Founders Fund. Among his investments, we can talk about companies that most of you probably know, things like Twilio, MakerBot, Biki, Mint, or SlideShare. So you've probably used at least one of those on your day-to-day lives. And right now, he's founding partner at 500 Startups, which has a fund. They have $250 million under management. So please give a fantastic, huge roar to Dave McClure. So,
thank you.
We were talking on the backstage, and I said, I'm going to make you do something. So I have the band here ready. So whenever you're ready, guys, please give me some tones here, give me some harmony, and...
Am I supposed to be singing or dancing?
Oh, no, you get the theory. Now you have to take it off. You have to take it off.
Okay, I thought that was a...
Oh, come on.
I'll take off the jacket. How about
Thank you, Dave.
But that's not it. Oop. And I'll take off my mic as well. Ooh. How you folks all doing? Great. Let's try not to blow anything up here. I'm going to talk a little bit about corporations and unicorns. Unicorns seem to be everybody's favorite topic these days. You all know what a unicorn is, right? It's a billion-dollar company. Sometimes it's people who think they have billion-dollar companies. Anyway, I wrote a blog post that was talking about why corporations are buying startups, particularly buying big unicorn startups, and we'll dive right into that. Let's see. Hello? Check. Slides. If we have some technology, perhaps. If not, can someone advance the slides for me? And meanwhile, do that striptease again. Yep, hello. Okay, maybe not. There we go. Okay, I think we covered this already. I was a geek at PayPal for a bunch of years. I started out as a programmer. I was an entrepreneur, had a very terribly small exit, less than $1 million, not at all a unicorn. But I also got to do a bunch of investing over the last 10 years or so. 500 Startups is a global seed fund and startup accelerator. We've invested in over 1,700 companies in the last 6 years. A few of those are not dead. We have over 100 people working for us, and we're actually in places all over the world. About half the team is in Silicon Valley, but probably about 40 or 50 people spread across another 18, 19 countries around the world. And we speak 25 languages, although I speak very crappy Spanish. So my apologies. We have invested in 3 companies that are unicorns. Twilio, which went public about 3 months ago. Credit Karma, which does credit scoring and monitoring in the US. And Grab, or Grab Taxi, which is a competitor to Uber and Lyft out of Southeast Asia. So we make a lot of investments. The name sort of tells you what we're up to. But we don't make big investments. Usually most of our investments are about $100,000. Our last fund, Fund 3, we invested in over 600 companies. But let's just say that we normally try and invest in hundreds of companies, expecting that we might get 5 unicorns and we might get maybe 20 to 30 companies that are large in value, maybe over $100 million. But for the most part, most of our startups fail. That's an unfortunate reality of the startup business. But we take that into account when we're thinking about how we're going to invest. So usually we'll make a large number of investments. We'll expect 80% of them to not really return very much value. In some cases, they won't return any value at all. We'll expect maybe 20% of them, maybe 25% of them to get to a Series A investment. And then subsequently, we might see some money made out of that. But it takes a while. Those unicorn investments probably will take 5 to 10 years to mature. I made the first investment when I was still in Founders Fund, first investment in Twilio 8 years ago until they IPO'd. So what's different about investing in startups today is it's a lot cheaper, particularly than 20 years ago. 20 years ago, you would raise $5 to $10 million if you could. You'd probably spend a year or two building the product, probably a packaged software product. You'd pay millions of dollars for the software. You'd pay millions of dollars for hardware. You might have to pay a lot in hosting. You'd have to raise from a relatively small number of people that are either on Silicon Valley, Sand Hill Road, maybe in Boston. And there weren't that many people online, so you were probably selling mostly to the corporate market. Now, there were still a lot of people who thought that that was great. People were very excited to build startups in Silicon Valley 20 years ago, but it took a lot more effort and a lot more dollars. If we contrast that to today, people build startups literally over a weekend sometimes. Now, usually it'll take weeks or months, but the cost of building those companies is much lower, at least in the first few years. It's probably just the cost of staying in your mom's basement for maybe 3 to 6 months, or whatever it costs to feed your programmers ramen noodles for a few months. But you have all these other services you can build on top of. You have Google, you have Facebook, you have Amazon, you have all kinds of services that are set up for storage, for e-commerce and payments, for mail. It's really quite amazing that you can build all this stuff on top of these infrastructure pieces that didn't used to exist 20 years ago. You can also do that to more people around the world than ever, and you can raise money from more people all over the world. About half the people in the world are online in some form or fashion, and we're getting probably the other half online over the next 5 to 10 years. So in general, we're a lot smarter about building startups than we used to be, but we still fail a lot. The other thing that's changed is we can touch customers and touch users all over the world in many different ways than we ever did before. I'm sure you're familiar with a lot of these platforms, but the ones on the right in particular, picture and messaging and video platforms, probably most of those didn't exist more than 5 years ago, and yet many of them have hundreds of millions of users. Some of them have billions of users. So our ability to tell people about our products and services, to listen to them, to watch them, to hear what's going on, is better than ever before, and definitely the NSA knows that quite well. So now that we kind of think about investing a lot more efficiently, we can do lots of small bets to see if people can build products, get initial sets of customers. We can do larger bets once we think they actually are starting to work and as they're growing that business. And then hopefully we can really make large investments when we think we're going to make some money out of that. But we do that probably in stages that are a lot more straightforward than we used to before. So when we think about investing, particularly 500 startups, we'd like to see that you've already built a functional prototype and already have some users or customers. So that first stage, which we call product, or when you're building your MVP, we might write you a check before you get to that stage, but most of the time we want to see that you already have a working product, at least a minimal form of that, and then you've got some people who are using or paying for that who aren't your mother or aren't your friends and family. And that's when we think it gets interesting. We'd like to figure out, can they grow the business? Can they get profitable unit economics if they're charging or if they're selling it? And then hopefully at some point it will grow into a very large business. But we want to invest as soon as we think there's an opportunity for that business to get big, and if we see a path to growth and a path to scalable revenue. However, a lot of other startups, a lot of other companies are also trying to figure out what's going on with those startups. These days, everybody's talking about disrupting big companies. We have companies and startups that are disrupting car companies, they're disrupting hotels, telecoms, all kinds of services around the world, which is freaking corporations out. They're very worried that their business, which they've been in for 10, 20, in some cases maybe 50 to 100 years, is going to get blown away over the next maybe couple of years or so. And they're right to be afraid. There's a lot of smart startups out there that are growing rapidly and generating lots and lots of customers and revenue. So what are they going to do about that? Well, they're going to probably start investing in startups so that they aren't going to get disrupted, and hopefully they can learn about what's going on. The growth of corporate venture capital has been dramatic in the last 5 years and probably almost doubled in just the last 3 to 5 years. They're also going to try and acquire those companies. So this is what I was talking about with Unicorn Hedge, is where these companies that are afraid of getting disrupted actually go acquire the companies that they might be afraid of. And in particular, that's not just technology companies. Now we have non-technology companies acquiring tech companies as well. Dollar Shave Club acquired by Unilever for $1 billion. GM acquiring Cruise for $1 billion, and Walmart acquiring Jet.com for $3 billion. It's actually no secret now that some of the largest companies on the planet and all 5 of the top 5 public companies are tech companies. And even those tech companies are also acquiring other tech companies. So for a lot of big companies, one way to avoid getting disrupted is to just take out the person that's going to disrupt you before they get too big. Now, along the way, it takes a long time for those startups to become unicorns, maybe 5 to 10 years, but that's getting faster and faster. However, it's still going to take maybe hundreds, if not 1,000 companies for us to find maybe just one unicorn. Sometimes along the way, people also may have some problems. They may even lose some hair. This is a picture of Jeff Lawson. He's the founder of Twilio. The picture on the left was when I invested in the company 7 or 8 years ago. More recently, he was waving a flag around the New York Stock Exchange, but a little less hair on top and maybe a little bit more belly, just like me. So here's the odds. When we invest in startups, usually we're investing at the seed or accelerator stage. The valuation for those companies might be somewhere between $1 to $10 million. In the first 4 years, in our first 2 funds, we invested in about 600 companies, and about 25% of those got to a Series A round. About half of those got to a Series B round, and that might be where they're valued around $40 to $50 million. Only about 5% of those companies got to a Series C round or $100 million valuation, and maybe only 2%, 1 or 2%, got to that $1 billion valuation. So for us, when we're investing, the odds of us finding a unicorn, probably 100 to 1. Maybe 50 to 1 if we're lucky, but probably about 1 in 100 companies gets to become a unicorn when we invest. And maybe we'll get 1 out of 20 to Centaur status. For us, that's a $100 million company. Now, I'm calling those out not because they're magical creatures, but just because those are interesting numbers for us where we can make some money on the investments. There's still going to be lots of great startups that are smaller. They may provide jobs. They may provide economic returns. And for the founders, even if they fail, they may learn something about how to do their next startup. But the odds are humbling to understand. Now, while these startups are disrupting corporations, there's another way that startups and corporations can actually work together. How many of you in the audience think that you could be a billion-dollar unicorn startup? Okay, guess what? You're all full of shit. You're not. Well, some of you might be. But I want to talk to you about the chance to just become a millionaire or maybe a 10 millionaire. And that's a lot more likely. So startups have speed. We can innovate quickly. We have talented people. Hopefully some of those are you. And we have products and ideas and intellectual property. Corporations, they have lots of customers. They have lots of budgets, hopefully. And there's an interesting opportunity there to marry innovation and speed and product and talent with customers and capital. So how does that kind of work? Well, I'd like to talk about how corporates and startups can work together, hopefully without killing each other. Now, there's a lot of corporations that are doing accelerator programs. They're doing events for startups. They're talking about innovation. A lot of that is bullshit. A lot of it is just PR and people making noise. Now, not all of it is bullshit. They are trying to get deal flow. They are trying to learn about startups. But I think that people should be focused on what the outcomes are. Those outcomes are people, product, and customers. People, I want to get really talented engineers, designers, marketers, people who can help me with my business. I want to get those into my older, slower company so I have a chance that I can be competitive in the market. Product, I want great new products. I want intellectual property. I want drones. I want virtual reality. I want all kinds of crazy fun stuff. Sometimes I just want the ability to talk to customers online easier. And lastly, of course, I want customers. I want revenue. Hopefully I want profits. Those three things are fundamental, really valuable to the company, and in the long run, if they stick around, they're going to help that company be successful. How do we get to those outcomes? Well, in general, we get to those outcomes through 3 methods. Partnerships, working with startups to bring our customers and their products together. Investments, either in those startups or in some cases in venture capital funds and other entities to help learn more about those companies and to kind of have an inside track in case maybe in the future I might want to buy those companies. And of course, if you're buying it, that's going to take a lot more effort, but you might go through that partnership, investment, and M&A strategy and find some interesting people, products, and customers for your corporations. So now, those activities we talked about, whether that's accelerators, whether that's doing PR and contests and conferences, whether it's moving somebody to Silicon Valley, now there's a reason to do those things. I have strategies that will eventually get me those outcomes. Now, there's different costs and requirements to those outcomes. Now, partnerships might be low effort and low cost, but the impact might be low or it might only be temporary. Investments might take a little bit more time, a lot more commitment on the behalf, and maybe that impact is a little bit larger. But probably eventually the goal is to acquire that technology, bring that in-house, and make that company's products part of your corporation's products. So if we go back to thinking about how does that investor ecosystem look, there's incubation, there's seed, there's Series A and B investment, there's B and C investment, and big unicorns. But where should corporations play a role, right? Now, should I start at the far end of doing accelerators? Well, I can do those accelerators, that's great, but remember my odds of getting unicorns or even just centaurs out of those accelerators might be 100 to 1, might be 20 to 1, and it might take 5, 7 years to really see those results come out. So if you're doing accelerators, you got to be patient and you have to invest at scale and wait for that to happen. But let me tell you a little bit secret. There might be an opportunity for you to get that innovation and technology a little faster. So I want to introduce you to this term of the Series B snipe, which I also call stealing baby unicorns. So you can wait until that company becomes a big unicorn, and then you have to write a $1 billion check. And guess what? Even $1 billion acquisitions don't actually work out all the time. Interesting case in point, Tony Fadell, are you in the audience? Well, sometimes when unicorns leave the nest, they don't always stay unicorns. So even though you might be buying $1 billion company and you might think the risk is low, sometimes those people don't stick around, sometimes those mergers and acquisitions don't work out. So I could invest in accelerator companies and wait 5 years and get a yield that might be 1% to 2%. I could write a big-ass check and get a unicorn right now, but I might be spending all of my dollars on one big risky acquisition. What I think you should be doing is looking for companies that are somewhere in between. Somewhere in between, probably somewhere between, say, maybe 50 to 100 people. They've got a product that's probably already working. They might be generating millions of dollars. And here's the interesting thing. The founders of those companies, well, you know, they might turn into Michael Jordan and they might become a big billion-dollar company, but probably for a lot of people, $5 to $10 million in your pocket for an acquisition would be life-changing money. Now, people aren't doing it just for money, but there's an interesting opportunity for corporations to find value in companies that might be measured between, say, $10 to $100 million. There's an opportunity for the person who's starting those companies to make maybe $5 to $10 million personally, perhaps even more. And that's a unique opportunity that's really competing with me. Well, not competing with me, competing with the Series B venture capitalists. So if I was a startup founder and I was thinking about raising maybe a $10 to $20 million Series B round, and my pre-money or valuation for the company was $40 or $50 million, if somebody else were willing to buy the company for $40 or $50 million, I have a lot less risk in that transaction. Now, I might be the next Mark Zuckerberg, and I might say no to that, you know, $10, $20, $50 million payday and just aim for the $1 billion. But for a lot of corporations, there's a great opportunity for them to put money in someone's pocket and bring that product and technology in-house. Hopefully, they're not stealing somebody else's baby unicorn, but I think there's a lot of opportunity that's not just investing in accelerator companies and waiting forever and not having to write billion-dollar checks to buy unicorns. There's a bunch of other things that are necessary to make ecosystems work and get startups off the ground. Probably the one that I think is the most important is not money, it's not people, it's not like IPOs, it's really just belief. Or in some cases, it's insanity. And what I mean by that is people in Silicon Valley believe they are going to be the next unicorn. They believe that they can become the next Steve Jobs. And they will take incredible and crazy risks. My friend Reid Hoffman is fond of saying that entrepreneurs are people who jump off cliffs and build the plane on the way down. You know what happens to most people who jump off cliffs? They hit the ground and they die. But, if you had 100 people jumping off the cliff all together, maybe one of those people is Elon Musk, and maybe they do build the plane on the way down, and then if you're smart, you jump into his plane. But, what's amazing about Silicon Valley is it's not just one or two people being crazy, it's a lot of people being crazy together. Now, again, we know that most of us are going to fail, but that suspension of disbelief and all those people jumping off the cliff together, one of them is going to figure it out. Maybe 2 or 3 are going to figure it out. And so that collective insanity, that collective hallucination that we have in Silicon Valley is what makes all the rest of those things possible. Well, it turns out that you don't have to be in Silicon Valley to have that attitude. You can do that pretty much anywhere in the world. We still need other things to make our ecosystems go, but that belief is the most important. You don't have to be in Silicon Valley to be successful, but Silicon Valley has to be in you. So I hope some of you will become unicorns. I hope some of you might just become millionaires. And for the rest of us who aren't millionaires or unicorns, I hope you have some fun along the way. Thank you.
Always a pleasure having you, Dave.
Thank you.
The Dave McClure, thank you very much. It's always fun having you. Thank you for sharing that with us. Big applause for Dave McClure. So, we're closing the show for today. I hope you had fun. I want to elicit a big applause for a fantastic band, Les Grooves. Thank you very much, guys. And we see each other. I won't be in this stage anymore, though. I'll be around. You'll see my hat. But We will reconvene at this stage, 8:30. We have mindfulness tomorrow morning, and then 9:30, a talk from one of the guys involved with Atari, I believe. So guys, have fun for the rest of the evening, and see you here tomorrow morning. Thank you very much.